Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
Talk to your
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American KnowledgeTeam, otherwise known as the University of the Universe. And of course, it's the same in every language and every culture. The plasma technology has many representatives around the world, and this is the Keshe plasma technology, which is rather unique in itself. It's part of, I guess, the quantum, but there's some controversy over that. As Mr. Keshe had said, quantum has an aspect of frequency in it, which the pure plasma technology does not. But we're learning so much about the process of creation and ourselves, and starting to realize that there's different processes. One is a creator ray and the other is a cosmic ray, and there's different creations in the matter dimension than in the energy dimension. But more and more of this is getting revealed through gameplay, I believe. One of the things Mr. Keshe talked about in this workshop was compression of plasma, compression of fields. And he said this knowledge would be released within playing the game of peace and enlightenment. So, and again, that's not the full knowledge, but that's just another step in the knowledge of becoming able to do some of the fantastic things, but most of all, to become peaceful with oneself. And this is what it's all about. And then, of course, spreading out those fields to the family and to the neighbors and to the city and so on, right across the universe. So this is what it's all about. And of course, we have a game of peace and enlightenment. Sometimes you meet someone and you haven't seen them for a long time, and they say, "What business are you in?" or "What game are you playing now?" And I think we should have a card printed up. I'm in the game of peace and enlightenment, with a little QR code on it, even handing them out and say, "Yeah, this is one of my new businesses." In a way, it's not a business, although we do pay you to play. So it could be perhaps a business for you, but Mr. Keshe said don't play it for money. But I think, again, he's playing on the greed a little bit, as he did with the One Nation networks, where he said you'd be earning so much Keshe coin a year. But even that hasn't had a very strong uptake, and I think there'll be more of those units being put out directly by the Keshe Foundation. So we had another beautiful workshop. We'll try to cover today something about the cosmic ray transmission sessions that are coming up, and of course something more about emotions. And Mr. Keshe mentioned a bit about the war, or some sort of scheduled war in the Middle East and so on, which he wanted to stay out of, in a way, of course, wishing both sides and all sides will come to peace, and that no one side is the winner, but peace becomes the winner in our sort of books. And of course, we're going to look quite extensively, perhaps, at the game today. So we have a lot of things. We'll see how Alex is faring in the background. That could, we could go longer or shorter. But is anyone not finding the game fondly yet, or how are you finding the peace and enlightenment game? That this is Mr. Keshe's biggest gift, he said, to humanity was this game. Now, sometimes you give a very expensive or very precious gift to a child and they don't pick up on it. They go back to something simpler, or perhaps something that they thought they would enjoy more. So we're just making people aware of the game, and I guess you play it the way you feel it. He did mention something about teaching someone how to play the game is not enlightenment. And of course, we're sharing and trying to get off the ground with it. But just like much of the technology within the Keshe Foundation, the game is in its infancy as well. And of course, there's an energy dimension to be added to this game. But this was the biggest gift, as he said, we could give humanity. And of course, you can participate in that game, and you can gift a big gift to humanity as well. So before we go any further, we're going to go to the World Peace Treaty. Any comments that anyone would like to make, or is anything at the tip of your tongue you'd like to share, perhaps? And let's see if we could make this a little bit bigger. Is silence golden? Okay, and this is our World Peace Treaty. And this was introduced many, many years ago, of course. This is what the world leaders will actually sign. If they sign it with a pen, it's a very short document. And this is our wish, that they would become enlightened. And maybe we can send them some of those energy drinks, book of wisdom and a book of meditation, and this would help sort of shore them up. But in the meantime, we're promoting this. I think peace will become more popular as we get closer and closer to realizing that we can actually go the other way and destroy quite a bit, even though the planet will continue to create, as Mr. Keshe said, if every single entity on this planet were destroyed with nuclear or an event from space or something, the planet would start creating right over again. So this is a self-sustaining planet. But this is our World Peace Treaty, and this is one of the goals of the Keshe Foundation in joining humanity with the universal community, is that we become peaceful souls, that we go out as a sort of a new man. That's part of this game. So if you feel you're not peaceful, actually, I introduced the game to someone and I said it's a game of peace and enlightenment. They actually said, well, I already feel I'm peaceful enough. So again, it's all how we take it, but it'll become more popular and there's much, much more to the game. But it's all tied in together, as everything from the cosmic rays to the Mark Ray Corporation to the Keshe coin is all tied together in with the GANs, the cosmic ray material. We just haven't understood the full connections yet. So this is our World Peace Treaty. Again, from a universal teacher, I would assume, and this is what you can sign and create that sort of reactor or your wish to become more peaceful. You don't have to be 100% an angel to sign this, just wishing to become more peaceful. And again, what that means to you may not be exactly what it means to me. I just hear some sort of interaction going off and I haven't muted my phone, so let me do that. That's done. Anyone would like to read the World Peace Treaty? If you love peace and freedom, open your microphone. All right, then I'll read it. We, as citizens of the earth, from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war, or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with our, and you can delete as appropriate, the nation, the territory, the council, the religion, the city, the town, the body, and the soul. Simply put your name and signature, again, on behalf of your nation, your territory, your council, your religion, your city, your town, or as an individual. You can stand in the balance, so to speak. Have it witnessed, and then, of course, after signing this treaty, be proud to display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. Well, I don't have mine displayed.
I start thinking about it.
I think your microphone is open.
You just said for us to open the microphone. Okay.
Oh, okay. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to someone else in the background, and I didn't want us to hear your conversation, your private conversation. But if you wanted to add something, please. We're always looking for more interactions. Okay, I guess not. Or maybe she's trying to find her microphone. I know she was having a bit of a microphone issue earlier, as I do as well, trying to figure out these systems. So where shall we go from here? Shall we discuss anything about the 625th Knowledge Seekers Workshop? I know Mr. Keshe talked about going up to 1,000 or more. And of course, as he said, it would take quite a bit of time to unravel some of these teachings, even to the point where he said it would take more than all of us on this planet to unravel these teachings. So perhaps we're going to get some support. We are getting direct support from the Keshe Foundation, but also from the universal community as we start to share our understanding and they start to share their understanding. This should add to the knowledge. I heard somebody yesterday saying the AI has made me 10 times more efficient. In the coming future time, it'll probably make me 50 times more efficient. And of course, this is part of our understanding is the conservation of energy. And I think this is the operation of the Creator as well. So there was many beautiful things mentioned, but a lot about the game. Through this game, we're going to build a man of peace that no man in the, it's a new man in the universe, I should say, is being created. A peaceful uh, son within that entity. And this is part of the whole work of the game of peace and enlightenment. Are they just calling it the game of enlightenment? They're not using the word peace in it? How is it promoted? Let's go to our Keshe Foundation store. Let's see if we can find it here. Here it is. And this game is part of a, or will be embedded into a One Nation network. And this is sort of an alternative network that is being set up, or within the Keshe Foundation alternatively, where living life and existing will become less harsh, as I'm seeing it at this point. This is our, what we call the Keshe coin, which is part of your gameplay, if we can put it that way. This is the actual game. I have enlightenment.us. Apparently, I don't have a, I'm not in the major game. I must be still in the minor leagues, Randy, or anyone else. I haven't made it up to the majors where you guys are. I'm just a little fish in a little pond, sort of in the backwater. But this is a version they gave me to try a couple days before the actual release. So, and it's amazing. We can go to the game and just take a look. I think there's a manual in here, and that sort of gives you the object of the game. But one of the first things was to try to travel to every country twice. And of course, to do that, you will travel on an airplane, or you will travel by transmutation. And it's given me a great geography lesson as well. To start, I could name some of the major countries: Brazil, Russia, United States, China, and even then I may re-guess myself, but Mongolia and some of the other places are becoming much more familiar. The countries in Africa, because we started to travel to them. And now there's an actual little bit, I guess it comes from Wikipedia, that sort of describes the capital, the population, the terrain. So I think we're getting a feel for countries as well. And of course, when you go into the energy dimension, which is another part of this game that'll be introduced, you may, through the emotions you felt about what you've read, or maybe something deeper, you may travel there in what we call the real dream, or the magnetic fields. And of course, this will lead to future travel in the universe. But I'm looking at this game, and as Mr. Keshe said near the end of the workshop, teaching the others is not enlightenment. So I'm just explaining what I've felt and didn't understand much at first. This is the first game I've ever played, but as I said, I'm becoming a bit fond to it. But I was collecting everything, and then someone mentioned about a beacon appearing. It's almost like a radio tower, and you can actually contribute to a country. You travel there and contribute. So when I first saw that, I said to myself, well, okay, now I've just spent an hour playing the game, collecting resources. You see, these W's are books of wisdom. I did say wisdom. And the other ones are book of meditation. And each one of those categories has a small, medium, and large. And then these are the energy drinks. So I was collecting these things, and I see some people got up to 100% and so on. There's a leaderboard you can check. And I landed, somebody said about the beacon. And so when you arrive on a beacon, you can actually give a country energy drinks, books of wisdom, up to 150 in each category. So I gave some partial things, but I thought to myself, gee, I just collected all these resources. Now I have to give them away unconditionally because there's a need. So at first I didn't like the beacons. In a way, I said, wait a minute, I just collected. Now I have to give it all away. Or maybe I'm not giving it away. Maybe I'm actually contributing to myself in the bigger picture. But now I've gotten used to it, and even to the point where I had 200 plasmas in this category, and I used them all to collect and give. And I think I've reached 4 or 5 different nations, and I funded them. Belgium, I think, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and a couple other ones, and a couple other ones partially. So this is the process. And again, I think there's other things embedded into this game that will teach you to be peaceful and look at life a bit differently. And this is not a competitive game at all. This is a game of collaboration and cooperation. So shall we demonstrate how this works, or shall we do something different? Anyone want to share their insight, or maybe you shouldn't share your insight, but anything you'd like to share about the game? Okay, well, as Mr. Keshe said, this will become more and more popular. And the earning of the Keshe coin, as I said, will be the effort of the man once he realizes how by earning Keshe coins, by playing this game internal to the Keshe Foundation, you perhaps can make life less harsh for yourself. And what I mean by that is about the feeding. I know that was one of the things Mr. Keshe said. But if you can collect some Keshe coin and you can then buy an apple for a penny or two, as we say, you don't get the physical apple, you get the energy and the taste of the apple, as I understand it. So instead of taking out your hard-earned little bit of money you may have, or many people have, and spend $1 or $2 for that physical apple, and of course eating it, getting the same energy as you would for 1 or 2 pennies from the Keshe Foundation internally, by delivering it through the energy dimension. And of course, most haven't understood this energy dimension yet, and this is what the man will start to fall in love with. So I think we're playing both in this game in matter state, flying by a plane, and also by the traveling by transmutation, using your accumulated plasmas, which transmutation to visit a country costs 1 plasma. Traveling by the airplane method takes 15% of your energy that you have accumulated. So here's a couple pop-out menus on the side, sort of like little dashboards to keep an eye on your enlightenment. Your knowledge goes up very slowly, and of course your knowledge goes up by playing the daily quiz. And there's many more questions which are going to be taken out of the Knowledge Seekers Workshop and of course embedded into this game as well. So we're into the physicality. We haven't even gotten past the beta version. I think the official version is scheduled for March 21st. So we're almost like in the farm team, where the football or the baseball team goes down for spring practice or winter practice and they get ready for the official season, plus helping the team in the background to debug the system and find some of its flaws and perfect or add things as they move along into this game. But again, there's many, many technologies that will be embedded into this game, or are already currently gently embedded. Again, if he can embed it into the workshop, it can also be brought into the game. And this is what he said: in the future, we will embed these pulses of peace and joy, happiness, love into the music and into the movies and into many of the things people listen to. So they'll unknowingly sort of and be very soft targets, and we are, to this cosmic ray technology. And of course, where is all this coming out of? This is part, again, this is the Mark Ray Corporation, the home of cosmic ray technology, and this is what was referred to in the opening video we played. I'm sure Newton would kiss the feet of Mr. Keshe because he's tried to create this materials all his life, these interaction of fields. Again, not having a deep knowledge, and I don't have that depth of knowledge either, but certainly it's going to be offered. And again, creating the carbon-14, or the strength of golden energy. Of course, there was a couple more steps. You can just imagine if this was applied to creating copper or to creating cotton. We call this material enhancement. And this is what we're learning, that the matter state that we've all been fighting for and stealing for and the rest comes out of an energy dimension. But again, you need knowledge and have to understand how to play with that interaction of fields and create certain conditions that we see after a period of time, the energy manifests itself in the matter state. So this is the home of the cosmic ray technology. And of course, now we're understanding there are creator rays and there are cosmic rays. He called the cosmic ray before creator rays, but now he's differentiating between cosmic ray and creator ray. And it seems like it's a dilution of it in a way. And it creates waves and frequencies which create in the matter state, as opposed to the interaction of the plasmatic magnetic fields in the energy dimension. He said there are two different ways of creating. But it's all, again, energy as we understand it, and it all starts with a single ray. And this corporation is actually on the American Stock Exchange as a penny stock, and it has a certain designation that's quite important as well. I think it's the 9661 code, which means it's involved in space technology and space research. And this is one of the only companies, I think there's 30, Mr. Keshe said, but you can see you can go quite deep into this already. Maybe all of them are not filled. Mark Ray was launched, but now it's coming more and more into the foreview. And this is the financial and sort of licensing arm of the Keshe Foundation. There'll be an Eastern Mark Ray Corporation set up as well coming up, and maybe some others around the planet as they choose to do. So this is where the technology and the licensing will be come out. The Keshe Foundation and the Mark Ray are connected, but yet they're separate. So we'll put this link in the chat later on. Anyone, any thoughts or anything you'd like to add about any part of the Keshe Foundation, from the game to the corporation to the world peace to the Keshe Foundation store? We certainly have gotten a beautiful gift. Now it's up to us to open it up in a way. Perhaps, I was thinking, where shall we go? We talked about the game a little bit. Mr. Keshe mentioned a bit about the game. So let's entice you a bit about this game a little bit more, that there's more. Don't read a book by its cover, as we like to say. So there's much more in this game, and there's much more once the cosmic ray dimension or the energy dimension is introduced into this game. But right now we're in just the sort of pre-season in a way, just practicing and learning about it. And as he said, which I thought was very interesting as well. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to just bring this up, what he said near the end of the workshop, because we're all looking for ways to play this game. How do you do it? Is it easier? And I was looking for that as well. Okay, is this it? Yeah. So we're looking for clues, which I don't think is bad. I know one of the first things you want to do in the game is to travel to all 195 countries. And of course, that number changes and the name changes. And the way you find out how many countries you've traveled to is you go to your inventory. And this shows you what resources you've collected. Again, these are mined from the fields of the universe, I believe. They weren't mined physically on this planet. So it's a concept. So if we scroll down here, we can see there's 195 countries listed. Now over here it says 195 countries, and then it says how many have you traveled to. I've traveled to all 195 countries. And it actually, this is what you do in collecting resources and plasmas. You start out flying, and then you collect some plasmas eventually through treasure chests and other ways, and then you can transmute. So each country you can visit 2 times. The computer keeps track of it, but you can visit it 5 times as well, but you'll only get credit for 2. So the idea is to visit all 195 countries, and you get to learn a little bit about the flag. I know there's much in the flags of the country, and of course some of the demographics, the population, and so on and so forth. Some of the, whether it's 70% desert or something else, it's got mountains, it's got multi-seasons, it's got rainforests. I think this is getting you used to when they actually introduce the transmutation into the energy dimension of the game, but I'm just guessing. Anyone else want to take any guesses about this? So this is your inventory. And just to show you how easy it is to travel, let's say I'm a brand new player, and I now realize that I'm going to use 15% of my energy to travel. If you're a new player, you have no plasmas, so we have to pick a country to travel to, and we can only travel through a flying thing. So I don't know what the game is about, and if I didn't tell someone, but everyone loves treasure chest. I think this is this Cuba? Let's see if we can travel to Cuba. So I'd like a treasure chest. Everyone likes to get bonus play or more things. So let's click here. It says to travel to, would you like to travel to Cuba now? And I say, yes, I do. But because I've just started in the game, I have no plasmas. Here's your plasmas here. So we're going to take the flying thing, or the, how do we say this in German? Flugschung? Anyway, I think I looked it up and it said flying thing. I thought the German.
Flugzeug.
Flugzeug.
Yes.
I thought the Germans, because it said there's no real word in German for airplane. So they're calling it a flying
Flugzeug.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought because the World War II and all the flying things they had, but they didn't come with an airplane, a word for it.
Just like the word for toy is Spielzeug. It's plaything. There are many words with Zeug at the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I took I think a year in high school of German from Professor Schultz, but I didn't take to it that well. Anyway, no, it wasn't Professor Schultz, but it was another beautiful professor, beautiful personality, but I just didn't take to the course, even though I do have some ancestry in Germany, apparently. I guess we were farmers at one time. So we're going to take the plane. And this is the way you have to travel when you first join the game, because you're in the matter state. So now we see it's going to be 49-second arrival time, and I'll be eligible to travel to someplace else in 2 minutes and 41 seconds. So let's just let this percolate for a while, if we can. And we'll go to the workshop where Mr. Keshe has talked about the game. Maybe we'll go to 52 minutes, and then we'll cover the other point later. And while that is sort of just percolating in the background, you don't actually have to be on the game, I think, to get credit for it, but we started a process. And that's what I've been doing. I've been multitasking sometimes. I'll play the game for a few minutes, and then I'll go do whatever I'm doing and then come back to it. As I said, I've become a bit fond to it, and it's has embedded technologies within it. We know what some of these hidden technologies can do by touching the energies of our own soul and giving us a different way of looking at the reality, or creating reality in a different way. So let's start here about the game, and we may hear some noise in the background, we may not.
In the next 3-month sessions,
okay, he's talking about the sessions, which we'll get to. Let's see if we can.
All affected and will be affected.
He wants to mention the game.
Understanding the whole structure of the creation in its totality is one thing, but in its reality is another. Once we understand the work of the compression of the plasma field, we have come one step further to understand the process of the creation. But you can.
Anyone want to share any understanding on the compression of the plasma fields, or compression of the fields they'd like to share? He said, I think he said to Azar, you can use the compression in your soul, but he said using the brain is much easier. But one of the beauties I think he'll want to mention in one of the parts of one of the clips we're going to play today, he said this knowledge, as I mentioned earlier, will be embedded into the game. It's not that you'll get the full knowledge of everything just by understanding an aspect of the compression, but it will add another step in your understanding, as I think this is what he said. But you can, again, figure it out on your own and play the game at the same time. Maybe that'll speed up that understanding. But I think it'll come through the gameplay somehow, which again is baffling to most of us. How could you learn? I guess you can learn things through the game, but the compression of fields or plasma seems to be a little bit far out there, isn't it? To grasp that understanding by playing a game.
Created. Nothing will happen unless you, in a way, have come in touch with the original fields, the original light, the original cascades of what has led to be the creation, the manifestation, the observation, and everything else.
I think he's going to make
Even
the game now.
if you look at, for example, the game, which we start playing and trying to find out, in the process of this game, it makes you to think. But that thinking targets that piece. It brings you enlightenment. How and which other way I can create peace? Not for the others, but first for me, inside me. I have to understand what love is to be able to give love.
So is that part of the ingrating peace within oneself that'll come through this game? As he said, to give love, I have to be peaceful with myself. And I know he mentioned one of the ways is where you see every other thing as equal to yourself. You're not lower than them, but you're not above them either. And of course, when we say other things, we're just looking at the Creator, I believe, because the Creator shows himself in trillions of faces, not only on this planet, but across the universe. And if we can get to that point, I think that's a peaceful place to be. And where, as this game will teach us, we don't need anything from the outside. As he indicated, the effort of the Keshe coin, the working for a Keshe coin will become the effort of the man. This will be the effort of the man because it'll make your existence much easier. Instead of paying X amount for healthcare coverage, you can order perhaps healthcare coverage through the Keshe Foundation for a mere part of your Keshe coin, and not thousands of dollars a month for you and your family. But it'll be different in different parts of the world. But this is how I'm envisioning to make life less harsh on this planet. But we haven't realized that there's a better way yet. And that's why we're here, just to explain a little bit more. And Mr. Keshe is explaining more of the work of this game.
I have to understand the knowledge of the creation within me that I can lead to the creation of the children of Mitra. Otherwise, I'm like that cow, the dog, the man, and everything else around me. The difference between the man to reach that point is enlightenment. Peace within. And peace within comes when man needs nothing from outside to make it think, forced to do things to get what is from outside. But when he's free, when he's available, when I don't have to fight for it, I become man of peace. Then you're hungry, you go and hunt. If that energy is given to you, you don't hunt, you don't kill, you become man of peace. This works even for the man of the greed of power. In the future, when you play the game, in the background of it will transmit this knowledge, this field compression as part of the game.
Anyone envision how that will be done? So he's already giving you a clue. I think there's things already embedded in it just by you playing at this level. But he said they'll embed this knowledge in the game, but he also says it's just another step in gaining the full understanding of the creation and how this magnetic field world, energy world works. Any comments? And again, what we're talking about here, for those listening, we all know these are all familiar people that are here as I see it, but it's this game of enlightenment. And getplasma.org or world.getplasma.org. You can start to sign up. Again, it's just in its infancy, and this is not even the official version. Okay, we'll go back to it. Any comments? This is going to make our lives much, much easier through the food, through the energy, through the wellness, and then, of course, the transportation as well.
Through the cosmic ray connections, which is added to your game system, which you could, in a way, the way we increased the fields within the seed of that grain of the wheat from 13% to 20% by adding the environment. The way we added, we changed the compression around the head of Naomi, which led to the creation of the cell of the brain, and you don't see the difference in the brain structure, is the same. We add that through the dimension of this 10,000 units, which is going to be around, to the secondary system, which is getting added to.
Okay, so now he's, again, sometimes this can be a bit mysterious on how to unravel all this thing. He's talking about the 10,000 units. If we go to the Keshe Foundation store, these are the 10,000 units. Maybe it's going to go to 100,000. There haven't been a big uptake. But this is a independent sort of network, which is part of the gameplay will be introduced into this network as well, and many other things. And this is the way, once the energy dimension is introduced into this network, this is where you'll trade the Keshe coin and the rest. Some of these things that we only thought were possible, as we heard the voiceover on keeping the Keshe Foundation free, melting kidney stones from thousands of kilometers away, may be possible through this game. And of course, you'd have to pay for it, but it's going to be a lot less and a lot more, I believe, effective than your current type of way of melting kidney stones, let's say, or removing kidney stones. So these are some of the fantastic things that are going to be added in making life less harsh, much less harsh to live on this planet. But again, that may be coming in the next months or years. It's not going to be a snap of the finger. We'll see how much humanity wants the change. I know that was part of it. So we can speed it up as a group, or we can probably collectively slow it down, but eventually it will be delivered. So this is the One Nation Network, Mr. Keshe continues. And you're all welcome to, again, buy a unit. By buying this unit, it actually earns you 2.4 Keshe coins per year, as I understand it. So in 1 year, it basically almost pays for itself. It's €3,000 right now. It was 2, but because of chip and other factors, inflation in the background, it's gone up. But you'll still earn the 2 Keshe coins per month, as I understand. Is it per month? Yes. Not for owning the unit, that is per year. Playing the game, you can earn up to 2 Keshe coins a month. Where most games, as we heard, you have to pay to play. In the Keshe Foundation, we pay you to play. But don't play for pay, as Mr. Keshe said. Play to become peaceful and enlightened. And the money will come, or the coins will come as they come. Any comments anyone would like to make? And again, no one's forced into this game. It's not, but it gives you a different way, and to sort of soften the blow of the harshness of living in this particular place in the matter state. Yes?
Yeah, question. There's all these places to donate. And on the other hand, Mr. Keshe was saying it might be better if we buy something and designate it as a gift to anybody else.
Sure.
For tax reasons, which one would be preferable?
I don't know. You'd have to ask info@keshe.foundation.
Okay.
I don't know how it is, but he said donations were causing some of accounting problems or something for them. So it would be
Yeah.
to buy a product if you're going to make a donation and direct it to someone, or allow the foundation to direct it as they see the need. Is that correct? Anyone else? Anyone been reaching in the pocket lately?
Not about the pockets, but yes, that was my understanding. They have to change things. I think tax reasons and all sorts of stuff.
Right. There were
So
some issues with the people inside Europe. They had one bank account for them and then a different bank account for people ordering if you're outside. So again, all this banking rules and regulations and so on, they had to change something and iron something out. So they've suggested to purchase products and make a donation that way, as I understand it. Any other clarifications? Gail, did you have more?
no, that was pretty straightforward, I think. And for, if people decide to join as students, then you go to the store for that as well.
Okay, so we're going to finish listening to what Mr. Keshe said about the game. There's another small clip about the game. So as I said, I'm a new player. We're just pretending. I've been playing for whenever, a couple of weeks or whatever. So I've landed in a certain location in Cuba. Gee, I don't know if my passport would allow me to go to Cuba. But anyway, I'm in Cuba now. I flew there on an airplane within the game, of course. And now I can click on the treasure chest. I'm trying to collect some plasmas so I could fly quicker and faster. As we know, airport travel is not what it's used to be, or it's just too crowded and too many lines for me. So we're clicking on this, and as you can see, just because you've gotten a treasure reward, whether you travel with the plasma or you travel by a plane, you may not get any plasmas, which it appears that I came up empty on the plasmas. I did get some secret rolls, which is for advanced gameplay, and I did get some cash coin, which is 15 ACC, which is about, what is it, a millionth of a penny or something? This is only for the beta version. So I did not get any plasmas. I already have some plasmas, but as I said, I was over 200 until I sort of went on this path of giving and collecting and donating. So now when you land in Cuba, you can read a bit about Cuba. And I think this comes from the wiki. It says open wiki. So you could go into it much deeper, but Cuba, officially the Republic of Cuba, is an island country in the Caribbean, comprises 4,195 islands, islets, and cays, including the eponymous main island and Isla de Jamutad, that's situated at the confluence of the Caribbean Sea, Gulf of. So it starts to give you all these sort of GPS points, getting a feel for the nation, how big it is, and some of these things I'm being enlightened to. Cuba is located east of the Yucatan Peninsula, south of both Florida and Bahamas, west of Hispaniola, and north of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Havana is the largest city and capital. Cuba is the third most populous country in the Caribbean after Haiti and the Dominican Republic, with about 10 million inhabitants, the largest country in the Caribbean by area. Culturally, Cuba is considered part of Latin America. But I don't know, under our current regime in the United States, if I can call it that. It looks like he wants anything and anything that he wants. Well, hopefully we could become more diplomatic. And this is part of the game. So President Trump, you can become peaceful and enlightened by just playing this game as well. And we invite you to do so. as this is the way the planet is moving. So as you see, I traveled by plane. I went to Cuba. I didn't get any plasma. So that was one treasure chest. Now, I'm just going to show you. I found another treasure chest here. And as you can see, if you open the game, make it a little bigger, you can sort of see where some of these things lie. Now, sometimes you'll just find a treasure chest. But in other instances, you may find a treasure chest plus an energy drink or even a book of wisdom or something else to go with it. So instead of just getting the treasure chest, you can get pick up some other things. So let's say I'm going to travel again. I've got 19 plasmas here. We're going to travel, but this time we're going to travel, since I have the plasmas, we're going to travel by transmutation. Within 2 seconds, we're in Mali. I think we're in Mali. Yes. Now, I can claim that treasure chest. That's all that's available here. I can't move to another country for 1 minute and 47 seconds. But with transmutation, you can arrive within 2 seconds and claim what's there. Again, no plasmas in the treasure chest. I know Rick said it's maybe 2 out of 10, but I did get some secret rolls, and I did get a bit of Keshe coin, again, a millionth of a penny. And then you can read a bit about Mali. We won't do that right now, but it's giving you, again, a feel, almost like telling your soul where it is and how it feels to you, perhaps for later gameplay of actual transmutation in a real dream, or perhaps even walking out of the real dream into a full physical transmutation within the capital of, let's say, Mali, for 1 minute or 2 minutes, or however long you'd like to stay there, perhaps. All within the structure of the Keshe Foundation. As he said, we can transmute you right now, but the governments aren't ready for it. So maybe that will come later. But they already have the technology and the understanding on how to do it. So you see, I hit 2 treasure chests, but I did not add to my plasmas. Anybody want to check anything else here? Or mention anything else about the game? I'm sure I left out much. Again, answering the quiz will increase your knowledge by about 0.2% per day. You can only answer it once per day. And that's one of the questions sometimes in the quiz. How many times can you take the daily quiz? I just gave you the answer. And as Mr. Keshe said, that's not enlightenment. I was just getting ready to show that. Well, let's finish this clip and then we'll show the other clip about the game. But this was the biggest gift Mr. Keshe said he could give humanity. Are we going to let it sit on the table unopened or only play with it as many children do at Christmas? They get interested in it for a week or 2 or 3, and then it just sits in the box or sits in the corner and never to be played with again. Hopefully we're not going that way. I think we'll find it, as he said, the Keshe coin will become the effort of the man once we realize how much it's worth and what a gift we've been given to make our lives less harsh, perhaps. Okay, so we're going to go back to finish up this clip in the 625.
You're connected to the matter state to your internet. We connect to the dimension of the field of universe, but we can play with it, and through playing games, through interaction with our system, we build the man of peace. You want energy without I haven't eaten for 3 weeks.
I don't care how strong this game is, you cannot make me a peaceful person or something like that. I'm sure people will have that sort of capability, or maybe, as I said, the person I introduced it to, they thought they were already peaceful enough. They didn't need to play a game of peace and enlightenment, but it will embed within you, or maybe bring that epiphany that maybe some of your behavior or your thoughts or your words are not as peaceful as they could be. Remember, we're not taking any weapons into space. Certainly our tongue and our words and our thoughts can be those weapons that we use. Even though we don't see them doing anything per se, you're creating some energies and you're sending those energies out.
Oh, I haven't done anything. I don't need anything to do to destroy, but I make things to help, to support. It becomes part of your nature. Because in this system, we allow the connection to the internet, which is the physical side of it. And on the side, we work, we deliver, we interact with the dimension of the fields of it. In a way, your internet connection is yin and the other side is yang. And the two together make you peaceful.
Yang, do you want to say anything about yang? I just picked up on that. I didn't hear yang before. Is it in there, or did I just think I heard it? What did he say? Okay. And again, creating a balance, teaching one to be peaceful. If I had unruly children, and thank God I don't, but if I had unruly children, I'd try my heart out to get them to play the game of peace and enlightenment. Some of these children, even under doctor's care, sometimes cannot be controlled. Mr. Keshe said he was that child, that nobody could stop him. He was quite hyper in his activities, let's say. So if I had a child that was playing games, maybe you could introduce them to this. And then, of course, the beauty of playing to earn some Keshe coin. Again, I think someone said you have to be 18 years old to have a Keshe coin wallet. But if you have a wallet, you could certainly allow your child to play, I believe, with it. Anyone have an exception to that? I mean, I don't see. He said children to grandmothers could play the game. But if you can't have a wallet until you're 18, how will children play the game? Of course, adults are just big children. Maybe that's what he was referring
to. And then when it becomes part of the DNA, part of the structure, 24 hours right into the system, then man, this planet, the cat, the dog, everyone will sleep happy. Because there are no hunger that I can kill something. I don't need to go hunting. I need to gather love only. The gathering of the man in the future is not anymore, I'm going to gather food to live. I'm going to gather the love, the energy, the emotion, which allows me, by giving, to receive more, to elevate, to enlighten myself in the knowledge of the creation.
So teaching us to learn to give more that we receive. So that's what I was saying earlier. You're like a little bee flying around the game, collecting some resources, some pollens, and then bringing that back and depositing it at multiple hives. Depend what the need is. Maybe you'll land on a beacon and they only need 2 books. So you take out of your inventory and you satisfy that need. So this is part of the game, learning to give unconditionally, I feel, at this point. But everyone's going to have a different sort of interaction with it. I think this is the way it's set up. And what you think about certain things in the game, I may think differently or approach it differently, and there's no problem with that. It's going to touch each one of us similarly, but yet differently.
Try to understand the teaching of today in the essence of creation, not in the essence of matter state. And then you'll find out you have leaped forward, even in conjunction with a lot of other things you do in life. You see, you look at life in a different dimension and direction.
Well, that's nice. If you could sort of, what do they call that? Turn a new page. You can look at life in a different way. You look at life in a different dimension, in a different direction. So this is, people get stuck in the same magnetic fields for many years sometimes, even over the loss of someone or some other issue, they get stuck in that magnetic field. This may help you to look at things differently. It seems that way. You look at life in a different dimension and direction. I hope you understand. He said that twice. I hope you understand.
I hope you understood. I hope you understand. I hope the future of mankind understands this specific teaching. That from it, man will make a new man of the universe, a new life in the universe, a new condition of the peaceful mind in the universe, as man understands within us, still not so, as was the sun, as we seen explained, is within me. So I have him in me as part of my soul in every single cell of my body. How can I let him down by my own lack of understanding of the created knowledge by him?
Whoops. So he's just concluding the teaching here, and we'll just listen to the rest of it. But when he says, how can I let him down? I think he's referring to the Creator. He says it's in every cell of your body and part of your soul. Or even in the last workshop where he said that the Creator does everything himself and you claim it to be you. So I think in a way the energy seems to be running the game, not so much the physicality.
Go for a break and come back. And I hope you understood. And I hope mankind will understand this half an hour, 45 minutes of teaching. It will cause the change of humanity in every dimension of transportation, life, not only on this planet, but in the universe. Rick, take us for a break, and we come back to answer any question.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
Okay, so that was the first clip. There's another little clip. We'll go to 2 hours and 13 minutes, and then I think we'll go to the end of the workshop. And this is where he said that part that I was teaching each other what to do does not bring enlightenment. I thought that was in a way what we were, he said we're all students and we're all teachers. Maybe just, he's talking about the game here and so on. So let's just go to 2:13, a few minutes here. But he said teaching each other what to do doesn't bring enlightenment. I thought that is part of the directive, is teaching one another, teaching each other, sharing how we've been enlightened in a way. Not so much teaching. I don't like that. It seems to be a one-way channel sometimes. I like the interaction or the conference of the birds idea better than the one-way street idea. Anyway, he was talking about the Michelson-Morley experiment here, and then I think if we go to, I just need to move my, to around 2:13:11, I believe it is, and I just brought these up briefly earlier. Hopefully we can get there a little bit more about the game. We just read part of what Mr. Keshe just said. Okay, let's, maybe we'll just start here. And there's only a few minutes left of the workshop. And then we'll go back to the actual announcements. Any thoughts or comments or questions or impressions anyone would like to share? Okay, I think they're all playing the game. And that's not against the rules now. This is the one game you can play in any of the classes I'm hosting, and it's not an objection to me at all, or any sort of dissing, as they say. This is the game. We can be multitaskers, as we know the Creator is a supreme multitasker, and we can see how much multitasking Mr. Keshe does. And this is a conservation of energy, as I see it. So playing the game is not a problem here. Let's continue at about 2 hours and 13 minutes, perhaps.
Detail, probably not, but
okay.
I prefer to stay out of it.
That was the Morley
yep.
Michelson experiment he wants to see.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps things up. We did have a question maybe you can quickly address that I had mentioned to you before the workshop about within the gaming environment of this new enlightenment game. Will there be opportunities for people to interact in various ways in the future? Can you give any hints on how that might work? For example, we had a question from a member of the Universal Council who is wondering how they could operate within the gaming environment and find a way to, help people or help the conditions that are occurring on the planet.
The the game is at its infancy and still getting added to, and what you call it, changed or whatever. And it'll got to change and added to, and different factors brought into play. That all depends on the developers, how they do it. Because people get bored, they find a way to, and that's what I was saying, explain before the teaching. A couple of thousand a year. And this, the changes will come, but in the same purpose at the end of it. Just give us time. Let us do our teething section, which is going on now till March, and after March we go to the next step of phasing. That's a lot of things needs to be done. At the moment, it's hectic in the background, and not only with the design, the people who develop this, for us to fit this into the society is extremely hard.
And again, we give energies and stamina to those working on the team to create this, and those with the ideas and so on that'll get developed. It's not that easy. Most games are, any of the big popular games, I think, have multi-million dollar budgets in the initial stages and the beta stages and the rest and so on. And we're operating on a rather small but yet powerful understanding of what needs to be done. So we send energies through the cosmic rays to the team and to the developers and to the originators of this whole idea. Maybe Mr. Keshe has introduced games in other places around the universe, different styles and so on, as he says he's been doing this for millions of years, bringing societies into interaction with the larger family, or what we call the universal community. Okay, let's finish. Feel free to interject at any time, about any point.
It's not going to be easy. And our target is at least 1 billion people to play this in the next few years on a regular basis for an income. And as I said, brings a lot of new things on. It's just getting there, doing it. I know the shortcuts. I know how can we teach each other what to do. Teaching each other what to do doesn't bring enlightenment.
Did you pick up on that? Teaching each other what to do doesn't bring enlightenment. And I thought that was the way. The stronger feeds the weaker. Any thoughts on that?
Actually, this game almost said is don't try to find a shortcut. Try to give the body, the brain, your emotion to comprehend it. It's not a game to finish and to do. And it'll be changed. Games will change a lot. Gradually, as we develop. Thank you very much.
Okay, so again, let's go back to the announcements. Any thoughts or comments or questions or anything? Welcome, Joseph. I see you in the background. I saw you earlier, just wasn't able to acknowledge it. All right, I think we'll go to the announcements and we'll hear a little bit about the one of the offers from the Keshe Foundation is the sessions coming up. And as we heard that video, Keep Keshe Foundation Free for Humanity, that Alex had voiced over, and some others, Mr. Keshe was there, and so on and so forth. Just a moment here. Okay. Bring this back to approximately, I think it's 53, somewhere around 53. And we'll hear the announcements and what Mr. Keshe, no, this is not 53, which was what we're looking for. Well, I guess I'll have to go to right after the break. I thought I had that down there, sorry. Okay, I think maybe 104 is where we're going to start then. Rick will come in. And again, these are public workshops. Anyone can join. You all don't have a microphone when you join, but if you raise your hand, you can ask any question you'd like of Mr. Keshe. Not that he'll give you the correct answer or even answer you directly. As he said, you can ask the question. That doesn't mean we're going to answer it correctly or even answer it at all. But certainly he does take most questions and does answer them. Although sometimes, as we heard in the last workshop, he likes to stay out of certain things, which can cause certain problems for the Keshe Foundation. And maybe we'll play that after his comments on what was going on in the Middle East. Okay, so these are the announcements. I think they're a bit long, but it's all enlightening for all of us. And of course, we all take from this teaching or what's being conveyed at our level of understanding and strength. And no one's right, and this is not a competitive thing. We're all rather equal because our level of knowledge, when you analyze it, I don't think we've gotten above 1%. But anyway, that's for you to decide. Maybe others have thought they've reached 99%.
Show the announcements from Mr. Keshe that came out recently, and it's in regards to the cosmic ray communication sessions, which we can see on the website here.
Again, an offer in the Keshe Foundation store, which we're showing. There's 3 sessions lined up. Let's just go quickly to the store. Rick is going to show them anyway. This is the one for January. It's a cosmic ray transmission. And as Mr. Keshe said, what they've learned from 3i, they're going to apply here. But also what they learn in these monthly sessions will be applied, I think, or become part of the game. Remember, these are helping to keep the Keshe Foundation free for humanity that they can develop. And you can see that there is an offer for February 14th. So you will have about, I think this is the 30th of January, 14th of February. Again, they're just giving a couple weeks for the fields to settle in to your own self. But the bigger work is to allow the Keshe Foundation to develop, not so much about what happens to you or doesn't happen to you in these transmission. And as he said, these are not transmutation sessions. These are transmission sessions. I believe working on the transmission of an emotion and probably some other things. He doesn't try to preset many things by telling you what they're going to do, because that can affect the session. But just come in with sort of an open understanding. But sometimes he also says to come in with a preset desire to either go somewhere or be with somebody or something else. So again, we're paying to be guinea pigs in this process. So that's the privilege you have within the Keshe Foundation, but it's keeping it free for humanity. Okay, let's continue on with the announcements.
On the Keshe Foundation store, I'll put the link into our...
Feel free to stop it at any time, as always, or add or share what you're understanding or experiencing, no problem. We don't even have to finish this. You come first.
Chats here into Zoom and into YouTube. And I'll read the announcement.
We don't see anything, Rick.
Oh.
I'm going to step away.
Sorry, I didn't share properly here. Let me share my desktop. Thank you. So, yes, from the Keshe Foundation store, and that's our background image today that I picked up from the store regarding the cosmic ray transmission. I put the link in the chats. Now, I'll just, there's additional information that Mr. Keshe had put out as an announcement. So let me just enunciate that. Announcements. 1, cosmic ray communication sessions. Keshe Foundation, following the launch of Peace and Enlightenment Plasma game last week, is set to enhance the experience of the joy of playing this game in combination with emotion of enlightenment experience that make the participants feel the emotion of peace and being able to open the fields dimensions that brings a new understanding of the world of creation through the enlightenment this game brings forward. We are set to expand our knowledge in transfer of emotions and enhancing the goal of the game with pleasure, knowing that collective fields of players in the near future can be utilized to bring about collective fields that can change not only them, but those who are citizens of this planet. We will use what we learned from this experience for the future development in helping the knowledge seekers to achieve faster emotional field strength to help them to create the fields needed to achieve rapid and fast emotional essence to be able to achieve transmutation. And it goes on, you can book your attendance in these sessions by using the following link. And it notes that places for these sessions will be limited due to sensitivity of tests. And I put the link into our chat here. Now, that.
So again, see how much help you can be in gifting this in the development, allowing yourself to be studied in a way that it can then be given to humanity. So you're playing a role in a way of gifting this to the others by allowing yourself, as I say, to be studied in a way. And you don't always get the feedback, and most of the time you don't, but they're testing different things on different people, sometimes collectively, sometimes individually, sometimes collectively and individually. And sometimes people have reported amazing things happening to them, not only in these sessions, but even in the workshops. So more and more of the mysteries, in a way, or the magic is being embedded. And of course, as I said, Mr. Keshe, when they said about being a magician, he said he doesn't do magic. He said, my knowledge is my magic. If you understand it, you become magician too.
Was the first announcement. There was a second one as well. Oops, I didn't have the. Okay, I've got the link is not correct here right now. Let me get that sorted out in a minute. I'll just verbalize the. See if I can find it here. Just hang on a second. I'll have to get that from my other. Let me just say it here first, and then we'll look at the Valentine Day website. Valentine Day experience session. It says, we have tried to give a gift of love to all those who have been with us to experience the loving emotion on the most loving day of the year. Join us to try to experience this emotion of giving and loving unconditionally in this unique session, as it will be new grounds for us to celebrate the maturity of the technology in being able to create the emotion of love and peace. You can join us in the Valentine session as we learn more about this emotion and its expansion in our daily lives. And it gives the link. It's the right letters here, but I don't have. Let me get the correct link here. Just bear with me.
So who would have thought that you could play a game and understand plasma compression, perhaps, and teach yourself to become peaceful and more enlightened through a gameplay? Not to man's knowledge so much, but to universal knowledge. And as he said, there'll be places to create certain conditions and other things we haven't. I think, as he's alluded to in the past, the fun has just begun. Any thoughts from anyone? Okay, let's continue on.
Second, there we go. But this is the Valentine's link. I'll put that also into both of our chats.
Will this be the second year in a row that you're attending the Valentine's Day? I think last time it was just a special event for certain people that actually wanted to see how they were sort of measuring up in a way, but maybe we can save that for a different time.
And this is the website from the link. And it's €500 and it's on February 14th. Couples can join for €750. Interesting image.
So again, open to all, as you choose.
I think I found a background image for Valentine's Day. Workshop.
Time to sign up.
Okay, that's about it on that, Mr. Keshe. If you have anything else you'd like to say about that.
So I think he'll go into the announcements here, but join us. This is the way we keep the Keshe Foundation free for humanity, free to develop without having to go out and look for billions, as he said, for scientists to find out. And then they tie your hands with the research.
Or about the briefcase UFO, we'd be happy to hear, or anything else you'd like to engage in.
These sessions are a vital, important part for our development and in a way to bringing everybody in the same position, because once we test as usual, we do, and then we can add it to these 10,000 units on the cosmic ray side that it allows the whole humanity to achieve. Yes, in a way, what we receive from 3I, we transfer that every humanity receives it 24 hours a day, but in dimension of what is needed for peace and transportation. It's part of the learning curve for us and part of the structure that we need to understand that we get it right every single time as we need it, as need to be done at the time and the place and the space.
So this is part of what they've learned from the 3I, which was a fertilizer in a way to our fields, if you could look at it that way as well, in our enlightenment and growth into the universe. So they're going to take that knowledge, as Mr. Keshe said, we understand what they've done, and I think they're going to sort of multiply that within the, not the game, but that'll come later, but within these sessions. That you won't take man 30 centuries to reach a certain point where they come back and add to it or whatever they do. This will happen in a much shorter compression. Maybe that's about compression of fields as well. Any thoughts on that? But he seems to be taking the knowledge of the 3I, which was gathered. He said everything was been recorded and man will study this interaction of 3I in the future, but we've understood it, or at least those deep internal to the Keshe Foundation, and this is going to be part of this session.
We are working on this system to be part of the daily life, because then it'll cover the whole of the humanity. We are trying to, Keshe Foundation itself is trying to go into actually paying for these ONN units to be spread across the world, that we can go a step forward faster. And this is part of our objectives, that we start literally investing in, and the incomes of it will go to the people who receive it, due to universities and the rest. And this is.
And thank you again for the creation of a beautiful transcript, efficiently and very accurate. We thank the team, and we send stamina to those as well.
It's part of our work, and hopefully we can change the field of the emotion. What this planet did not give to us, we create ourselves to receive it through understanding of what was lacking, did not work for us up to.
So you can see one of the issues is the the planet did not give us, or the creation has left us a bit short, which causes us to do some funny things that they don't do in the universe. And I'm not talking about dancing, I'm talking about stealing energies from others.
As we go further into this, we allow you to understand more as needed, because it has to be not only understood, it has to be implemented, that we can do it ourselves, and anywhere in the universe we can achieve it, we can reach it. And hopefully we'll see more and more of this, because this will give us many things, not depending on a food chain supply, not depending on to be given what is handout, what they decide as food, as energy, contaminated food, contaminated energies, and everything else, in allowing us to run what we call a system independent of financial restrictions up to date. Running a system which is not in its vocabulary, politics doesn't exist. This is something which a lot of knowledge seekers have not maybe understood what this change will bring.
Again, this some sort of disregard, even though I'm sure strongly the politicians and the rest will be elevated, or hopefully we're going to continue that elevation, but we're going to be sort of operating in a different bubble where all the games and the deceit and the insincerity that we see in spokespeople for nations and different things, we're not going to pay that much attention to it anymore, as we're in a way creating our own sort of way of operating on this planet, if you could look at it that way.
Playing a game of peace, you're playing a game of enlightenment. But with it in the background, in the other part of the system which is getting added to, by giving you independence, politics becomes irrelevant. Politicians can only exist when they can create a division of we are better than the others, where we're all better than we are together. And this is part of the structure. The what I call the world of elections will have no meaning. The world of policy, diplomacy has no meaning, because we are all part of it. We're not expecting anything. We are not any different than anybody else. And so we are in it all together to be part of it. And we are part of the society of us together. And this is the beauty of it. The end of politics, the end of diplomacy, because I have, I give, I do, and what I do goes to extend to help the others. We'll explain in a very short while. You will see it when it comes to the 21st of March, that whatever you earn, 1,000, 200, 2 coins, a quarter of a coin, 10% of what you play, which we give you, will be taken off you and will be given to your government, Keshe Foundation, and the structure of the system. Which means if you earn 1,000, 100 will come off. 80% of it is allocated by designers to go to the government where you reside, where you carry where you live. So you cannot escape going somewhere else. And secondly, you haven't escaped because we're giving it to you freely. We put it in there that the government see the change. 1% will go as it's allocated to for keeping the system going, and 1% goes to Keshe Foundation for further research and development.
So you see how it's a self-perpetuating process, that this is how it'll remain stable and continue the research and add more to the game. We're just in the infancy, but again, playing a game to learn and to support the others is a beautiful way to move. And as I said, once they introduce the energy dimension in, I think you're going to taste that apple in the energy dimension, which you never thought was possible. Especially myself, when I heard years ago in the Keshe Foundation, Mr. Keshe say you could feed yourself without eating. At my understanding, at that level, I said there is no way that that can be done. How could you possibly do that? But now that we've gotten a little bit deeper understanding into the knowledge, and some have experienced some of that, we see how definitely possible it is if you understand the play and can work with the fields rather than the matter state. Not that, as he said, we're here to enjoy the matter state, good wine, beautiful women, and the rest of it. So, but we're also exploring, starting to explore the energy dimension, which by understanding that dimension, you can create anything you like. This is why we don't see war in the universe, and this is why they want to bring man into the universe with this understanding as equals, that we don't continue to sort of create havoc and waves that shouldn't be created, let's say.
So, in a way, by playing the game, you're financing your citizenship. And it's more than enough for a nation to live. If a million people play in the country and they earn 1,000, 2,000, we give that automatically through the Keshe Foundation through the settlement system to your government. They see it as is needed. They see that is supporting it.
And this is how the other nations, the poorer nations, as he said, they would have a distinct advantage. This is how, by not having or having the lack of resources, once it catches on, they're probably going to outpace the West in peace and enlightenment. Because here in the West, we say, play a game of peace and enlightenment. I've got to be at my second job in about 20 minutes. I don't have time for any of that nonsense. I've got to earn money. And so, the West will probably be, in a way, behind the other countries that will play this because they need certain things. We need it too, but we are so stuck in our current operations that we can't see that anything could exist out of the matter state. So this is why I think he said that the underdeveloped nations will become the more enlightened and peaceful nations in the future, because they have a need for it, and we think we don't, even though we do in the West as well. A big need.
They supported the expansion of it. 20, 30, 40, 50% taxes is not reality. This is why a lot of people avoid it and a lot of people suffer with it. 9, 10%, and what do you earn from us? It'll become a norm, and then the government accepts it by itself. Because the more they encourage the people to pay, the more income they have, the more structure will give for them to do and everything else. This, what we set up, will bring many, many changes. As I said, we still need a huge amount of finances to get to it. Somehow when it comes, we receive a huge donation, we spend it straight away when it has to go. Needs investment, needs a lot of things, but we still have to keep the daily life going. You can't have just people just to play. There's nothing else happening. And we reached the point that we are financing the purchase of payments for these units to reach the 10,000 as fast as we can. Once the system is completed, we do allow it ourselves because knowledge seekers have not been there to support it fully to get to that. From every source we have, we are even setting it up now to be done. And this will bring peace. This will bring a lot of change.
So I think this is where people around the Keshe Foundation will start coalescing, perhaps around the game, and then there'll be some maybe breakout rooms or Friday, Saturday night cafe, and you go back to playing the game, you go back to trading some currencies or something else. Maybe you get into a different thing in the marketplace. So I think this will be a place where knowledge seekers will start to coalesce around this system. As I've heard many of them say, they're happy to come into a meeting of the Keshe Foundation because they can't really discuss this with others on the way that we sort of discuss, even though we're not that deep into the knowledge, but at least we're open to it, where many of their friends, relatives, family members are not quite as open. So this will be quite a place for us to gather around and share, as I'm seeing it right now. And as he said, all the teachings will be there. You'll have storage there. The books will be there. The papers will be there. The patents will be there. The energy dimension will be there, and all the offerings that will come with that energy dimension. So you won't really have to go far. I mean, nobody likes to go to work today. Maybe it'll be even harder to sort of break away. I know some people can't touch their phone at work at all unless they're on a break. And maybe this will become something very good for everyone. And maybe playing a game, even in the military or at work, will not become a penalty. It'll actually, they'll realize this is probably way down the road, but they'll realize what a benefit this is creating on this planet to allow people to have the time or freedom, or maybe even giving an extra break to play this game. It has far-reaching ramifications, which again has just started to scratch the surface of a few knowledge seekers. I think there's 500 people perhaps playing the beta version, but that can grow overnight. You know how fast trends can be set, or things can go viral. So fear not. Don't look at just the numbers, but the potential of the game. Let's continue. Any other thoughts or comments?
Just this brings, it's not just not needing money. If you understand behind it, when we're all receiving everything else we need, who needs the politicians? Who plays the politics? Who plays diplomacy? Because there's no, we are all in it, and the more we put in it, the more we gain from it. Who gets what? It becomes serving the governments of the nations. People give more of their time because it's there for it to be, and it's transparent. Any bribe is there, you can see it. A bribe has been taken or given, the contract goes with another one. So all this will stop on its own automatically. It's very, very much transparent. And we shall see. I was looking at one of the world leading politicians when he was 40, when he was 20, he was nothing. He got into politics. Today is 82 and he's holding 10 trillion.
Now, anyone want to guess who that could be? Anyone have an idea? Who's worth 10 trillion? Leading politician, former leading politician. Is it Tingy Blair? I think that's who he's talking about. Although Tingy is only 72, maybe Mr. Keshe just threw that in as a little curve. He said he's 82. I actually looked it up because he's mentioned Tingy Blair. It's Tony Blair, of course, but in another group I was in, they called him Tingy Blair for some reason.
In assets. Not 1 trillion, not 1 billion. Pretending to serve a nation is lying him and his family with money beyond the money. Saudi royal family has 1.3 trillion supposedly. You can imagine how much this man has robbed this nation. And he's still one because they can do. We don't need with this system.
And you think they're going to stop robbing their nations? No, I think the robbery of the nations will continue. We have to sort of, we're going to be in the nation, but maybe, yes, you pay your taxes and everything else, but as they become elevated, the robbery will slow down, but maybe they want to try to outdo this guy who's got 10 trillion. I can get 15 trillion somehow. Gosh, I don't know, but again, the greed will get satisfied through the gameplay.
Everything is traceable. In a way, we change with the policy, with diplomacy and politics, because you are financed by your own structure through the cash coin, through the games, through everything else, to the system, to the business. It has to be that way. We cannot just be one thing. We have to bring the food on the table as much as the peace on the table, the love on the table, and the financial support that it can do. You'll see, we have started a process and we rely on knowledge seekers to support us to bring to that point, because then there is no intention of change. And there is no intention of somebody pushing it because it's to our favor. Any questions?
Okay, we're going to create the Dome of Peace in a few minutes. Let's check in with Alex and see how he's faring in the background, whether you're ready to begin. You need more time. Either way, we'll accommodate. But if not, we're about to go into this creation of the Dome of Peace. And that's part of the game, is learning the process of creation. I think that's why the energy, the enlightenment, the consciousness is there, the knowledge, and many other ways. All right, we're not getting any response at this point in time, so let's just carry on. Any thoughts on? I know we could take a look at Ed's question about the emotions, which we're all dealing with, and just because I'm here, that doesn't mean I've achieved much of any of this. So, when I talk about this or that, I'm just hoping I'm going to achieve more than, and you may have achieved more, way more than I have. So I'm not here because I have achieved much. I'm just here until someone else takes the position. So it's not like I've understood all the knowledge or done anything special or whatever. We're just all growing into it. I'm sure Alex feels the same way. We're just one of the plasmas in a group of plasmas, nothing special. Although we are all special and we all are chosen to be perfect. I think that'll come more and more down the road. Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was earlier today going through some papers I have here, and I found a summary of a guy, Rosenberg, about nonviolent communication. And it's very, very useful. And I think when we start using that and applying it, we won't have those kinds of emotions because we experience things differently. If we train ourselves to use language, the nonviolent communication language, like I messages and not you messages, blaming and all this kind of stuff, then it automatically shifts our experience. At least it has for me.
Yes, as we heard, man hasn't reached, if you take all the grains of sand on all the beaches on this planet, man has not reached one grain of knowledge. Maybe in the matter state, yes, but not in the energy state. And I did hear an interview which I shared earlier in a different meeting. I just wanted to cover this. This was Dean Radin, and I had bought a couple of his books just because he talked about the consciousness of the universe and so on. This is his latest book, The Science of Magic. Here it is, The Science of Magic, How the Mind Weaves the Fabric of Reality. And I thought it was a good interview. He's been playing with this energy idea, but of course, mainstream has not understood it. And now he says, and he's given a lot of beautiful examples. So perhaps we'll put this in the chat later and share it with everyone. There's commercials and everything else in there. But how, as Mr. Keshe said, what you believe and what you think is you can manifest some of these things. And apparently our consciousness has a major impact on the matter state, but we haven't fully understood it. So I'll share this later. You can listen to it and maybe take something. I'm not following this guy, but the idea of magic, and of course, when we don't understand something, we call it magic, don't we? Walking on water or levitating or the rest of these things, or moving objects and things, people think it's magic. But as Mr. Keshe said, he doesn't do magic. If you understand the knowledge, this is what he works with. It's the universal knowledge that allows you to do some of these things we only consider as miraculous or magic. And he did refer to rebuilding a scrambled, or part of a scrambled brain of Naomi. And this was done years and years ago in Italy. Yes. Go Go ahead. Did someone want to say something?
Well, I just want to add that by beginning to learn this nonviolent communication with other people, I use it in my own thought processes, and therefore I interpret situations differently, and I don't get carried away with as much as I used to with
Right.
negative emotions.
That's why he introduced us to the gift of the three wise men, because as I said, I think you think many, many, many more times than you physically act. And this
Yeah.
is, again, he said, not to create war in space. I'm thinking when he's talking about space, he's talking about that space between your ears. Man exists and operates in the universe, and the universe exists and operates within the man. So this is the universe he's talking about. No weapons in space. That thinking dimension. He said, if you don't think wrong, then you don't talk wrong, and then you don't act wrong. So we can all apply it. And I haven't reached it. I'm probably, as I said, further away from it than everyone else. But we're just trying to make that effort to become closer to the Creator, to be more peaceful in ways that we probably even imagined were not peaceful. But I think a lot of it relates back to your thinking. You can think so many more things than you can physically carry out. And I always looked back at the holy books where Christ had said, if you think it, you have much as committed it. And I could say, well, gee, how could thinking be the same as physically doing something? But apparently he understood the world of the energy or the creation. So if you think it, you have as much as committed it. And of course, what you do belongs to you, no one else. And as he said, maybe we can put less souls in our knapsack in a way, because you don't have to physically kill someone to wish they weren't here. You can do that with your thoughts. And this is what I think Christ was saying about you think it, you're as guilty as doing it. So we're all trying to curb it. It's very easy to drift off into that thing, especially if we felt we've been wronged and they need to be punished. But we understand the punishment is actually the elevation, and we understand there's no punishment and there's no forgiveness as well. We heard the study of the Faravar and other things where we carry those good and bad things with us that we learn as far as the bad things, not to repeat those. So no punishment, but no forgiveness as well. You carry those in your own sack and not mine. I carry what I'm responsible for. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Shall we go to the Dome of Peace? And this is a practice that's, hopefully we still have it, or did I lose one of my, I think I lost one of my backgrounds here. Yes, I did. Okay, so let's just bring that up again if we can. I'm going to find where I have it bookmarked. I'll have to reset it. That shouldn't take but a few minutes. Anyone have anything to say? I see Irma's put in here a model for nonviolent communication. And I'll put that other one, that energy dimension that the scientist has been playing with for quite a while. It's going to take me a second to bring this up, but we'll have it shortly. And even though I have it bookmarked, let's see if we can just pick up where it is. Maybe I already scrolled by it, perhaps. I think I did. Let me try one more time. Which is what I'm looking for is the first step of the Dome of Peace, is where you use the plasma water. And again, I think that's just giving you something to do for your physicality. But as we know, we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. So by releasing Gans waters, getting your physicality to realize that you can release fields. And then, of course, we take it, that's the first step in creating the Dome of Peace. And then we go to the collective work of the power of the souls. So I think this is, let's just see here. We're just going to move it to its timestamp, which I do remember. I think it's 13640 or 13440. Let me just see if we have that, a 13440. And I want to thank Stefania for voicing this, and I want to also thank Shweta for the second part. So here we are, we're at the Dome of Peace. And of course, this is just one of the backgrounds that the Brazilian knowledge seekers are participating in this process. So are the Chinese, and so are many other peoples. And all we're asking you to do is to create a GANs, which is like little suns, something that you can take the water above it, like the third of the water above the GANs, or from the top down, take the third, and release that into the environment. And you can actually add some GANs to it if you'd like as well. I think Mr. Keshe said he likes a little bit of GAN. This is water that you're releasing either in the drain or spraying around or the rest of it. But he did say he liked a little GANs in it at one time. You can use any GANs you'd like. And then, of course, once we get to the second part, we'll see the second. So this is about releasing GANs waters. He explicitly said, jokingly, this is the way you take over a planet. And again, take over just means to elevate and bring it into a permanent peaceful condition. And this is the idea of this whole process. As we know, peace is much more beneficial to the majority, but the war benefits a small, greatly benefits a small minority. So peace makes more money for everyone. War makes a lot of destruction and a lot of money for a few. So we're moving into this dimension, but whoops, let's just hear the first step in creating a dome of peace, something for your physicality to do, which will then continue on, but also translate into your understanding of how to use your energy dimension, which is the second step in creating the dome of peace. Welcome, Carolyn.
Anyone want to read this dome of peace? Anyone want to offer?
I
With
will
a nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This is from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So how is this the greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about peace on this planet? Is that just showing? I mean, this is not a ritual. We don't do rituals around the Keshe Foundation, although in the game you'll find a ritual circle. But what is this? But this is the greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Is this just the way you're sort of confirming it? In a way, putting your intentions in it, releasing it, and the rest? Okay, we can explore that perhaps at another time. There's no problem. And of course, the Brazilians also have a daily intention. Apparently, their strength of the soul in that group has the power to carry this through. So without fail, every day, in and out, 7 days a week, and some days, I think it's twice. Wednesdays, they have a soul intention, and every day at 2 a.m., but on Wednesdays, you can join them for this working with the energy dimension. Remember, Mr. Keshe said, we're opening the mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energy dimension. Well, he said energy, but this is the dimension we're opening up. Again, the smell, sight, hearing, taste, and the rest of these things, your vision, he says you call them the five senses, I call them the five prisons, because these can fool us rather easily, even though we use them to make certain judgments, but it's the energy dimension which we're trying to understand more. So On Wednesdays, you can join this group in a physical meeting on a Zoom or in the YouTube, as I understand it, or perhaps on a Telegram. I'm not sure their actual setup, but this is the background. If you know any Brazilians who'd like to, or Portuguese language community who'd like to join up, you can pass this on to them, but you can also be there as the meetings are both in English and in Portuguese. So we thank the team, elevate the team to carry on. But as Mr. Keshe said, the strength of that soul in that group has the ability to carry on with it. So we thank them, and we, again, add stamina and energy to their work. So that's the part of creating the second step of the Doma piece. And again, you could say, this is kind of funny. You know, do you have any proof this does what it's supposed to do again, and so on and so forth? We're going to leave that up to you. So now we're going to create the second step of the Doma piece, is the collective power of the souls. And as Mr. Keshe said, collectively we're stronger. And that's why we're doing this collectively. And so every day at 9 p.m., people will meet, not in a Zoom, not in a Telegram, and not in any of the other channels, YouTube and the rest, but just purely on the energy dimension to, again, collectively join and bring about the elevation of the souls of the world leaders, not the world leaders, but the soul of the world leaders, and give them offerings of emotions of peace and kindness and freedom and the rest. And this is part of your exploration in the energy dimension. Again, you can still be working, so you can't say I'm working at that time, because you can multitask. You can spend just 1 nanosecond of your life and contribute to this process. And even that 1 nanosecond, Mr. Keshe said, nobody fails this test. So you're all being successful at it. Again, we may not see the results tomorrow, but you're learning to operate here in the energy dimension as well as when you arrive and operate in the universe. So let's hear the second step of creating the Doma piece, which is playing in a way with the energy dimension, which we all feel a bit uncomfortable with. At least I did in the beginning, that, gee, this wishing and kind of working in that dimension, that's for children. That's not for adults. We just roll up our sleeves and get things done in the matter state. But now we're seeing that the energy dimension, working with the plasma, is much easier, takes much less energy than trying to do the same in the matter state. It's a huge conservation of energy. And since you are all huge field generators, whether you acknowledge it or not, you can apply your structure to this process and join with the others collectively, collaborating together to create a beautiful spectrum of fields, which we haven't really understood. So this is the second step in creating the Doma piece, and this carries on until we reach a permanent peaceful position on this planet, or the soul of this planet. Let's hear the second step.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, Beautiful Souls. Anybody? Here? Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the Gans waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the Dome of Peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the Gans waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the soul of humanity through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of guns, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. Kesh. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Shweta and Stefania for reading this. And now let's just take that 1 minute of time. And again, it doesn't need to be quiet. You don't need to take 1 minute or 1 hour. You choose. But we'll just hold hands together plasmatically in a way, create that bouquet, and just take give 1 minute of our lives together here to create the world peace. And this is what we're doing. We're waking up the collective awareness that at 9 p.m. every day and further, again, you're not restricted to 9, but this is where collectively we're meeting. And some people suggested we should have it every 3 hours, but again, it's up to you. You can do it as early, as often as you'd like. But join in this energy dimension at this point in time on a daily basis. Again, I think it'll make you feel good about the work you're doing, the person you are, and the difference you're making. Remember, in the matter state, the game is rigged. In the plasma state, in the energy dimension, we have that major connection with the soul of the creator in us and in each and every other of the created things. And this is how we do it. That's why the work in the plasma dimension doesn't take a lot of energy, doesn't take a lot of work, as opposed to the matter state. So let's just take 1 minute of our time. We're collectively joining together in an inner state of peace and calmness, and just send beautiful, positive emotions to the world leaders, whoever you choose. And of course, you can apply this to other family members and others in your sphere, or even some maybe you don't know, but you have that connection to provide. Remember, what does he say in that formation of the Universal Council? Is the elevation of the soul to serve become the key, not a throne in the physical life. So this will bring you, in a way, a dimension to serve the others. And of course, in serving, you don't become poor. You actually get nourished in this whole process. Even though if we looked at it conventionally, we'd say, well, gee, I'm giving up something, I'm losing something. But as we know, you will receive as well. So you're actually elevating and nourishing yourself, and continue to play the game. This will bring you more ability to go in this process, perhaps. All right, so let's just take a minute of our time, and I think Alex is ready to come in. So we'll start now and come back in 60 seconds. This is how easy it is. So you can be driving, you can be walking, you can be skiing, hiking, changing the baby, making dinner. You're definitely operate in both dimensions. So, I mean, you can have no noise in the background if you choose to, but don't feel if you have to do something else that you can't participate in this process. As we know, we're learning to be multitaskers. Women are usually more successful in this because they've had to balance so many things simultaneously. The men are usually one trick ponies, but they can also since they were women at one time, and the woman mother, and probably have those same capabilities. And we know the creator is a supreme multitasker and multi-interactor, let's say. So let's just take 60 seconds and just hold each other's hands plasmatically and go through this process. Okay, thank you all. So you can see how easy peasy it actually is. If I had to meet with a world leader in the matter state, I'd probably need millions of dollars for as an offering just for a few minutes of his time. And then, of course, we're meeting in the matter state and the rest of these things. So, again, by using the energy dimension, we have that mother connection and nobody fails at that. So, thank you all. Continue with the process. Don't feel it's like a cake where in 45 minutes it comes out, or a turkey in 3 hours or 5 hours after you put it in the oven, it's done. This will be a continual process until we reach that permanent peaceful condition. And maybe that's the permanent peaceful condition we're trying to reach within ourselves, so on and so forth. Any comments anyone would like to make? Hopefully Alex has the dish ready. I think he does. Welcome. Thanks for continuing with us. And what I'm going to do is just close my game in the background because I feel I have a need to play the game in between as I listen to your teaching. So hopefully it'll be on another system so you won't hear any of the noise in the background. But that's not a no-no, is it?
Well, it's kind of interesting.
So thank you again for coming in. And I know you're wishing for peace as much as we are, and of course, sharing of the knowledge, but amazing how knowledge transfer is going to come through the gameplay, probably in many more aspects than just the compression of the plasma or the fields. So thank you, Alex, for being here and carrying forward with us. We do appreciate your presence and the way you share the knowledge, if we can put it that way.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, and thanks for leading the charge here. As I've always said, it's a very important meeting because we are following in the wake of the Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursdays and the Brazilian team's efforts on Fridays. And here we are trying to spread this around, and thankfully we're represented by so many different continents on this meeting, and we try and add some more. So welcome everybody to the Keshe American KnowledgeTeam meeting of 2026.
Where's my little thing of needles?
I'm going to mute your mic. Sorry, Alex. I didn't think she realized her mic was open. No problem.
Okay, so let's get some important business done.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. It's an interesting time, to say the least. But it's a very important time, actually. There are a lot of people in our society who are quite depressed. And today I'm one of them, because one of the things that is really depressing is that the more you know, the more you find out how little you know. And it's not a point of arrogance to say, well, you know, I have this whole body of knowledge. When I was 40 years old, I learned how to get into construction, and which was quite a phenomenon considering the fact that I was a city boy and I knew nothing about construction. When I was a child, we had a very extensive toolbox. Not only did we have a claw hammer, but also a flathead screwdriver. But I had to learn about construction, and I became an expert in my field. And the reason I'm depressed today is because I have learned some things that have been ongoing all my life that I had nobody explained to me. And it's a shock. But this is not the first time I've had this shock. And many of us are going through this shock. And so it's all right. It's all right. Because what are we seeking? We're seeking answers. And so one of the benefits of not knowing something is that it causes you to seek answers. And then once you find out those answers, and you say, why don't I have the answer to that question? And you find that by not having the answer causes you to really focus to find the answer. And the thing about it is that we have been forced to find these answers plasmatically, not so much in the physical state, because as Mark has said before, we have obstructions. But in the plasma state, we are connected directly. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute Teachings on Plasma Science. We have entered the basic picotech category. We're discussing construction. Yes, we are. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada. It's January the 18th of 2026. And this is a continuation of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So please learn from this in the best way that you can. Know that we've been doing this for quite a while, trying to distill the information and down to bite-sized pieces. And when you get a whole bunch of bite-sized pieces, well, it really becomes quite a big load. And so what we've been trying to do is to streamline this so that even the new knowledge seekers can come in and basically just hit the floor running, if you will, and catch up, because there is a lot to catch up. And it's not absolutely necessary for everyone to go through each and every series. After all, we've been doing this for over a decade, and the Keshe Foundation has been doing it over 2 decades. And, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about now has been long overdue, but not just with respect to the Keshe Foundation, but with respect to humanity as a whole. And one of the telltale signs is construction. And the nice part about construction is we can see what was built. And a lot of people like to go traveling. They like to go to various countries and look at the buildings and check out the history. And one of the nice things about doing that is to compare how things were done in history and how things are being done today. And the shocking thing is that we are firm believers that in our history, we did not have today's technology. And so it creates a bit of arrogance. Well, I certainly understand that, having been a city boy. But that's a fallacy. That's one of the false failings and weaknesses of humanity, believing that you are the center of the universe, if you will. And we're not. We're just at one point in the plasma science. And we are at that point now where we are starting to think outside the box. And yes, we discussed nanotechnology and we discussed GANS technology, but there's an intermediate point in the pico technology, and that's what we're discussing now. And we find that each level is an order of magnitude, which means 10 times. And so we have now advanced 3 10s. That's 10 times 10 is 100 times 10 is 1,000 levels above the nanotech. And yes, we have. And all that does is it empowers us to understand things better. And this is becoming very, very important because all those people who are depressed will find that in 2025, the gold rush has begun because on May the 10th in Beijing of last year, we demonstrated how we can create from rotating fields actual production of gold. And this year, well, we have a new rush. It's the silver rush, and that has begun. And what's the common thread between the gold and silver? These are minerals. And we have many industries that explore for these minerals, process them, and manufacture with them. And so we're finding that this is all part of the construction. And so when we talk about construction and we look at our history, as I mentioned, construction may take hundreds of years. But destruction may only take a few minutes. We have to understand that destruction is a form of construction. So this is why we want to delve into this topic, because if destruction can take a few minutes, what if construction itself could be faster? And well, how much faster? Well, let's take the frozen Gans ball. Look at the water when it froze. We could see that at the source was a gravitational core, and then we see hair-like lines being emitted magnetically. This is a construction zone. We created fields plasmatically. You wouldn't be able to do this otherwise manually, would you? How would you go in there? You're inside the ice cube. You know, razor blades wouldn't even help you cut the lines in the ice. And then if it did, well, maybe the ball would melt, or maybe it would be damaged. So we can see that there's nothing more perfect than the way nature is doing things. How can we replicate that as a man-made structure? And so we looked at the picoatomic structure, and that has taken us beyond the nanomonatomic state. And there's clearly a difference between the picostructure and the nanostructure. And that's why we've entered this particular subject, because we see that there's various ways to communicate, various ways to travel. And communication has to travel on pathways. And so we have a transmission highway at carbon 12, transposition highway on carbon 14, transmutation highway on carbon 16, and we can go at various speeds. And these differences are measured in orders of magnitude. But, you know, we are very much tied into our physicality. And I'd like to focus a little bit on waveforms today, because as we can see with the Karakoram Highway, sometimes you have to go, and how many times have you done this? Have to go a crooked mile just to drive a straight line. And you see, that's a kind of a form of transmission. And so in the plasma science, the transmission is actually made up of a magnetical force, which is uplifting, and a gravitational force, which is in a downward trend because it seeks density. And so we see this sine wave in singularity, and we allude to it as a frequency. But nothing is really that clean, shall we say. because when we go to just the next level, look at a sine wave in duality, we can see overlapping fields and we can see a lot of confusion. Are we magnetical or are we gravitational? And then to compound matters, we can modulate these frequencies. So we can stretch them higher, or we can overlap them and, shall we say, achieve a double exposure. So we can do so much manipulation. So we understand that part of the nuclear feeding inertia is that the fragments become part of the complexity. In other words, the pieces have a gravitational stability all their own. And it's these pieces that allow dimensional portability. So in order to understand these dimensions, we've been focusing on 3 dimensions, and we are none of those 3 dimensions, and they are continuing to work. And so there's more than 3 because we have a result from those 3 dimensions. And we can't extricate ourselves from these dimensions. So we find that these dimensions all have fragments. And we can say, well, the fragments are like clues. And so if we look at what convergence is, the magnetical force, and divergence, it's the gravitational force. Or another point of view is the gravitational force is the convergence, and the magnetical force is the divergence. So when you're looking at the fragment, do you look at the first one or do you look at the second one? So in order to understand, energy is to be given and then it can be taken. You have to understand that when you're doing construction, if there's a building there that is old, decrepit, you may have to demolish that building and remove it before you can accept the new construction. So when we're looking at the convergence, we're looking at the gravitational aspect, which is the second fragment, and the divergence as being the magnetical, again from the second fragment. So when we're looking at the principal matter, the PM ticks are the magnetical fragment. They are a fragment of a whole, and they're an energy pack all unto themselves. And that energy is parceled within that pack. So how does that turn into, as we see, the coming together of the conversion into a plasmagen, the coming together of the antimatter, the dark matter, and the matter jet? And then how do we get into the physicality? And then we have this field interaction we call inertia. And where exactly is that inertia? And how does it relate to construction? Well, it's all part of the maggrav gravitational forces, which means that the maggrav has to have a balance. And this maggrav is come together from an interaction. So inertia as clues demonstrate the convergence, which is gravitational, and the divergence, which is magnetical. And we can see this in various constructs, and they're quite stunning. They allow us to go into exotic places and have quite spectacular results. And isn't that wonderful? And that's in the physicality. But that's a challenge. That's a real challenge. And it's costly. bit as well. So how do we manage that challenge? In other words, the challenge of the construction and the challenge of the costliness of the construction in today's day and age. And so all we have to do is look around and we see what we have and measure. And how do you measure? Well, being a world traveler, you have an opportunity to compare. Most of us are not world travelers. Many of us stay within our little area. And we are quite content with our tiny, perfect world. And in fact, we're so content that once we have enough money, then we like to live in what they call condominiums. But the fact of the matter is, it's just a modern day cave, isn't it? And we glorify that construction. And so we get to live in a shoebox and we get to furnish it the way we want to so that we're comfortable. But realistically, we're using the same technology that we so sneered at the cavemen and how ignorant they were and how basic they were. Isn't it interesting how things go around and they come around? So there's common denominators. And so the commonalities can be clues. And so we find that in the process of convergence and divergence, the gravitational and magnetical field forces, we can actually select an embedded transmission. And we see that when we put them all together, that in order to be embedded in there, they themselves have to have a relationship of a magnetical gravitational. And so in the process of the transmission, there is a continuous pole flipping from magnetical to gravitational. And so that's what we see. MG, MG, MG. And it just continues. And it has to do that in order to be part of the transmission. And it keeps going. So we now know that we can look at the individual in singularity or in duality or being embedded. And when we talk about construction, my God, look at the galaxies. So we find the gravitational point right in the middle and how it's kind of squeezing together, and these PM ticks that are contributing to that, they're all magnetical, but they're coming to this gravitational core and they kind of squeeze into the picture. And so we have the creation of galaxies. So there you go with the range. From that of your tiny perfect cave dwelling to that of the galaxy. But we hardly ever look at that, isn't it? So the thing is that these cosmic rays, which are part of the magnetical forces, are behind the PM ticks, or they are embedded in the PM ticks, or they are the PM ticks themselves. The point of the matter is there's a gravitational focal point. So we've been talking for years about how the dynamic plasma comes together with the X and Y axis and then manifests into the Z axis, which is the third dimension, and allows you to see the dynamic plasma. But the dynamic plasma always has to have a relationship with another dynamic plasma, but not necessarily, because what we're talking about is inertia fields. So when these magnetical forces come together, each one has traveled a different path. No two have traveled the same path, and no two have the same embedded signature. However, there is a sorting process. So even though the magnetical force fields are different, there's an embedded commonality. And when they come together from these three different dimensions, then they create a gravitational point. And as I said, we're none of those 3 points because we're the observers. So we're from another point. But our point of view also comes together in the same way. And so that's the shocking thing that we find, that when we try to analyze how the galaxies were created, we also have to understand that's how we were created. So Mr. Keshe has been trying to bring together the knowledge through these books. Book number 1, The Universal Order, The Creation of Matter, which is how we construct things from matter, dark matter, and antimatter. And then, of course, book number 2, The Structure of the Light. Well, there you go. There's another form of construction, because you have to have this structure to be able to convey the energy between 2 other matters. And then, of course, there's The Origin of the Universe in book number 3, which sees that these individual matters can actually go through the reverse process of creating 2 different structures. One is our universe and one is the sister universe. Within that universe, all we seem to be concerned about is that tiny little perfect world we call Earth. But more than that, we have our little country. Well, more than that, we have our extreme cave dwelling. And so we ignore the rest of the universe. So we've been trying for 413 weeks with the Universal Council and Rick Crammond to bring together the one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace. Because our Universal Council is the council for our little tiny perfect world. But the other world has a Universal Council as well, which we can't see. And we know that we can't see it because we are so focused on what we see and say, well, what we see is what we get. So we've said that we are kind of fallen angels, which fits with the mathematics calculating angular density, where you fall through weakness and you increase the density and you increase the pressure, and of course you increase the gravity. But overall, we've increased the dependence on Earth space feeding. And then we have the internal pressure of the Gans fields to balance that off. Why? Because the angular momentum is conserved. In other words, equilibrium. So in order for us to navigate and build in this environment, we were given a blueprint. We call them commandments. How to live, actually. Well, isn't that good? And I couldn't find the ones for the dogs and cats, but you know, we have commandments for humans. And then we found another 14. They were missing from the basic teaching. And number 11 is thou shalt not lie. Well, if you don't tell anybody what you're doing, you don't have to lie, do you? Because energy binding is very important. It's a self-serving goal. And it creates that dimension point, me, myself, and I, those 3 dimensions. But we arrived here through the birth process, but we forget that because in our physicality, we like to do that at the expense of others. So what happens? Well, the others are suffering as well. So those who don't understand the plasma rule, where the higher strength eats the weaker strength, then that becomes a conflict point. And we see nothing wrong with it. But this conflict point is actually a binding zone because it brings two people or two armies together or two fields together in either a confrontation or a cooperation. Well, with the plasma rule, the higher strength feeds the weaker strength, so that is cooperation. And either way, it's a very physical result at its most extreme, and that's what we call a manifestation. And in the physicality, it's extremely dense. But either way, it's an inertia field where two fields come together to create one. Therefore, it becomes an inertia density manifestation. So when we were talking about the nanoparticles and how they come together, we can look at them in their individuality and say individually they have a charge. But when they come together, they also have a discharge. And you need that balance because energy is always in motion. So you can't hold it, you can't stop it, you can't grab it, you can't package it. All you can do is to create a balance where there's a constant charge and discharge. And then you can stack this up like a nanolayer stacking, and you can align them like a nanotube. But when they become diamond crystal, where all the nanoparticles are aligned, such as we see on a copper wire that is nano-coated, we have a monatomic alignment where we've created a superconductor. And we can stack this. So in other words, the nanolayers can be aligned as a nanotube, but the diamond structure closes the tubes. So it isn't a matter of physically going through the loop or through the hoop, as many of us do in our lifelong activities, like show ponies and show dogs. But we can follow paths. But even these paths are not rock solid because we can nest in there. And so we have nanomonatomic layers. And between those layers, we have gaps. So we've identified several pathways. So when we look at a star formation, in simple terms, if you just extend your two index fingers and you point them to each other, and you just turn one hand 90 degrees, the tips of your fingers show a formation of a tetrahedron. And so when you layer these stars and when you nest them, then you get a connector through intermediaries. But they're not necessarily physical. The characteristics they have is they're either covalent, trivalent, or tetravalent, and they create a bonding. It's hard to see. But if we look at the nanostate and how the monatomic star formations are created, we have a lower layer that's interacting with an upper layer. And then we have an upper layer that's interacting with the lower layer. And we say, well, isn't that interesting? So how do we determine the direction of the connection? Well, it just has to, things are aligned as such. And some may be right side up and others may be upside down. But you get this monatomic energy flow, which we call synergy. That's how we get the superconduction. And then, of course, when we have more than three, that becomes a polymer chain. And this chain can be a superconductor at room temperature. Well, in nature, there's a folding over. And so the fourth one folds over, and what do? You create a star formation. And that star itself has a magnetical gravitational relationship on its own, where you have a base and you have a top. And so you see that how the base, the gravitational core, is the universal creation of matter. coming together of the matter, antimatter, and dark matter. And then you have the point. And so we did that with the rotating balls. We put them together and each ball had a field. And when all of them came together in a star formation, a plasma field was created. But that plasma field then interacted with all four rotating balls. And this is what we demonstrated. This today obsolete technology was demonstrated on May the 5th of last year, or was it May the 10th, where we had these rotating balls. And we laid out these silver spoons, hoping to catch the gold. I don't know if you laid all the spoons out on the floor like this at your house, and say you threw up a bag of rice or something, how many grains would fit in those spoons? That was just a question. But the thing is that when we had a dynamic reactor, when we had all these plasma fields come together right at the core, was another dynamic reaction. And that's the point. At that point, when we talk about construction, we're talking about dimension building. So you start with one point, and then you add a second point and connect once. And then, of course, if you remember, you can add a third and connect two. Now you have a base. And then if you go one more, you add a fourth and connect three, well, now you have your star formation. So what we have to understand at that point is actually a manifestation of an inertia building. And so that point comes from two fields. In other words, two star formations contribute to the manifestation of that point. And then, of course, likewise, as you continue your dimension inertia building, you add a second and you connect one, and each one is from two fields. And then, of course, you could, and you definitely would be, modified by an external influence. Because you cannot extricate yourself from the universe. So you are always modified by an external influence. And so we see that when we create the dimension inertia building of star points, each point is coming from two fields. And it's hard to see those fields when we are focused with those points. But when those two fields come together, they don't just come together in the star points, they also come together, as we've seen in the polyatomic solid GANS inertias. Because the GANSes, when they are dehydrated, they're not glued together. You can still separate them in the dehydrated state. So they're not bonded in the way we normally would glue things together, but there is a covalent bond that allows them to come together. So in that process, there has to be a relationship between these formations, and that connection needs to be linking them. And since each GANS particle is a magnetical giver, then we find that that point is coming from two other fields. So by extension, we can see the dynamic plasma construction, that each ball in the rotating reactors is a product of an inertia field. So although we are focused on the point of the rotating balls, we have to understand that there is a substructure of two fields coming together and interacting, so that each point is still magnetical, just like we've seen from the galaxies, but then there's a gravitational core. and how all these magnetical fields come together. And how do they come together? So they have to be counterweighted. And it's not just in the physical state, because we measure the physical state by weight. That's the lowest common denominator, the most gravitational. We also measure the atomic state. We use that as mass. That also is gravitational. So we focus on that in terms of our physics, but then we see the nuclear state, but we measure that in Teslas. And those are magnetical force fields. And then, of course, we have that strange thing called the plasma state. And we measure that in time. Time has kind of been dangling out there like a dangling participle. And we haven't been able to sort it out. But if we include it in the counterweight measures, we find that the time itself is magnetical, which makes it part of the transmission. So the plasma matter dilemma is when we look at the physicality of the atomic state and the nanostate and the GaN state, and each side is balanced off with its magnetical gravitational relationship, and then each side of the equation is balanced off. But then we find that there's a substructure of a plasma state that is part of the matter state. And then we can have this energy transfer state that allows us to balance off the equation in each and every state, or we can have interstate travel. But there are other states, because when we look at the carbon inertia highways, we can see that the carbon 12 highway and the carbon 14 and the carbon 16 highway are part of the matter state, but we have many, many variables. And so these variables are in equilibrium. So the range is from the physical matter state to the cosmic state. So this is how we can create the free plasma, as they say. In nature, carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and nitrogen forms the star formation, which is the creation of life. And you have the structure within the structure. And so you have two star formations come together. They are individually magnetical, but coming together in the gravitational core is the picocore. And that becomes the foundation of the construction. So we have a magnetical consistency where we always have the balance between the various states, the matter, dark matter, and antimatter. But we have varieties. And so that becomes the gravitational core. And the magnetical feeding is consistent because of the commonality. But likewise, there's a gravitational consistency also. Since the gravity seeks density, there has to be a kind of common denominator. And so we find that the solid GaNs accelerates this angular momentum to achieve this density of gravitational consistency. But in that process, it bounces off through equilibrium with the magnetical outdensity. And so this is what we've been doing with the cups of life. And we take the cups of life in each pair, we can create a GaNs of one cup and a GaNs of another cup, and have the cup of emotion be again the inertia field of those two cups. Or we could take the cup of physicality and another cup of physicality and have an inertia field of a cup of physicality there as well. And so we could take the product of the inertia field of one cup of emotion and the inertia field of the other cup of physicality, and come together with a MAGRAV condition in that transaction zone, which is at the picocore. And so by extension, we can see that we are a gravitational entity traveling in the magnetical field. So this becomes very important in order to understand how the plasma comes together as a field, as an energy field. And no two plasmas are the same. So one would be magnetical, one would be gravitational. And so when they come together at this dimension point. So these two fields create one point, and that point becomes a transaction zone. And it could be in a plasmatic state or it could be in a physical state. And since today we're talking about travel and construction, well, let's just take a little tour of some construction. So we can see that the physical construct comes from an emotional desire construct. We want to build a building. That building is in matter state. That is a physical inertia density manifestation. That's a successful construction. But that emotional desire construct comes from a mental construct. That is still part of your matter state, because in your awake state, you are designing this. But you're designing a mental construct. So that's a plasma inertia density manifestation. From that mental construct, you could put it on paper, make your drawings, and from there, you could have your physical construct. So this is your mental construct. But your mental construct comes from an imagination construct. And that too is part of matter state, because it still is an inertia density manifestation, but it only has arrived at the plasma state because with your imagination, you now have an idea and you focus with your mental construct to imagine the fulfillment of this imagination construct. So your imagination construct comes from the soul of physicality interaction with the emotional wish construct. So this is a different emotional construct, different from the emotional desire construct, because this is in a plasma state. It still is an inertia density manifestation, but it's a plasma inertia density manifestation. So the emotional wish construct comes from the soul vision construct and interaction with time, place, and position. This is in a plasma state. This is an inertia density manifestation. And then, of course, it would be a plasma inertia density manifestation. Then you have your soul vision construct. And that comes from the unconditional truth. That is a pure plasma state. So here we are. We have to discriminate. We have to select our personal star physicality and the soul of physicality of our sun. And this is part of the pre-selection process. So we have the solar physicality of stars of the universe, but our sun is shielding us on many levels. So we have a natural selection by way of discrimination. We're looking for that common denominator. And on this planet, we have a gravitational confirmation of oxygen. And that oxygen, although it's clear, has an emission spectrum, an emission light, and it's unique. And that's how we've crossed the threshold, where we go from a plasmatic decay to a GANS, or we go from a GANS decay from gas to liquid to solid. And we can do this in various forms on our Earth space. But we have a need for supplementation due to our consumption. And as we consume things, we acquire knowledge. And that knowledge is a conditional teaching by ancient teachers. But there's an unconditional teaching by the Creator, which is giving us a new awareness to see the difference between the historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. And so when we look at the marvels of the construction on this planet, there are many, many unanswered questions. And as these questions are starting to be answered, as I said at the outset, it was very depressing because the more you know, you find out how little you know. But the thing is, we've asked these questions all our lives, and I don't know has been the answer of choice. That is not a suitable answer, because we are now at that point, that turning point, entering into uncharted territories, seeing that there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state, covering the full range from decay to radiation. And there is an ancestral knowledge, that's the AI, that we are the technology of, and we are the inertial product, and we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So we came here by choice, and we came here using energy in a portable form. Energy is portable. Energy state transition can be elevation, that's going from physical matter state to energy state, or it can be inertia, where we go from energy state to physical matter state. So elevation involves expansion. And so we really have to think big, but we always seem to tend to think small. So we become susceptible in our singularity because we're looking at the gravitational completion. We have to have the external input of the Gans field of humanity to turn what we have into gold. And that's a susceptibility in duality. And so we understand that there are external forces, and they are modulating what's going on all the time. So whether they're outside of our sphere of reference or within our sphere of reference, these modulations are ongoing all the time in various energy states. And so for 625 weeks in a row, the Knowledge Seekers workshops have been bringing together that greater oneness of understanding how we can suddenly transcend the limitations of nuclear science and head into the teachings of the cosmic ray transmission. And this month, we are having more tests to learn how to become part of this transmission, contributing to the research where we can turn diamonds to gold or silver. As it said, which since May 10th of 2025, the Pico core of truth is out. So stick your head in the sand and deny it, or join the One Nation Network and be part of the scientific rescue, opening the blinds, one nation network at a time, because that time is now. And here you are, converging with our mission to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused due to lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. You can't extricate yourself from this process. It's automatic. You are part of the enlightenment. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful knowledge seekers of the carbon nations, learning about the new selection process of the new organic plasma science. That World Peace Treaty is something that you need to choose. Show it, sign it unconditionally, mean it sincerely. Because the point of the true picotech is the polyatomic core manifestation, taking into account the overlapping fields of Earth space and create that peace dome. Is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history? Or you answer that. It is time to learn the history of self in a universal context. The picostate promotes the GANs as a peaceful superconductor. And so the PM-TECs and pico building blocks construct the fields ranging from the matter, plasma, and universal states. Yes, the plasma science needs to continue to be enhanced daily via the peace dome in seeking a practical exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new golden, or maybe silver, outer space age. And thank you all for listening. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed it.
Hey, thank you, Alex. Again, you make it much, much easier than we thought it was, perhaps. Although I'm still quite baffled by everything, especially when you said destruction is the same as creation. How could this be? Could you explain yourself?
Well, didn't Mother come to you in the room and say, "Oh, Mark, look at the mess you've created"?
Yes.
So nothing is destroyed. It is reduced in functionality, or it's converted into another kind of matter. So, in our manufacturing process, in our construction process, we create something, we construct something, and then what's left over is garbage, and we toss it out and we throw it away. I don't know where away is, but there's no planet in our solar system called away. So I'm not really sure where away is. How do you throw things away?
Okay. Let's see if any of the participants have a question they'd like to voice, whether it's on this particular topic or not. Let's just open it up to the participants. Maybe you could define what a superconductor is. I'd like to be a superconductor someday, but I mean, you probably have to spend a lot of money and create materials and superconducting things. But what is a superconductor? Can we find superconductors within ourselves, or do we have to create environments for them, or how do we look at the superconductor? And I know Mr. Keshe even extended it further to say where you create that universe in a bottle. We have superconductors and we also have superconductors. So would you tell us about superconductors? Something that is not a metal but behaves as a metal, or what's the purpose for superconducting? And as usual, I think I've given you 3 questions. So
Yes, you have.
play with those.
Well, what is conductor. So a highway can be a conductor, you know. So if you want to come down this hill, you know, in this Pamir Plateau, in order to come down safely, you have to follow a crooked road. But it's still part of the transmission. But, you know, if you decide just to go through the barrier and you don't want to make the turns and you want to come down in a straight line, you could come down much faster. You might not necessarily come down in one piece, though. But the thing is, that's the difference between traveling with a waveform or traveling as a superconductor, with one big difference. There isn't any resistance. Ohm's law does not apply in the plasma science. And so Ohm's law is your current and voltage to measure resistance. So there's a lot of resistance in our physicality. But the plasma science, it isn't resistance, it is selection. It is coming the common denominator. And so when we're looking at the selection, we look at the frequencies, but these frequencies also have a relationship. And so we can extricate certain fragments of that. And then when they come together, we can see that common denominator. So they may not look the same, but there is something that is embedded in there that is a common denominator, and all those who are listening to this will find it. In a superconductor, there isn't any resistance. So we find that with the nanotechnology, right off the bat, we see a superconductor. The superconductor is conducting energy without resistance. And that's why we have orders of magnitude of improved performance. And so everything that we're talking about is in our physicality, we have tremendous amount of resistance. So, you know, fascinating construction like this is hard to reproduce. We have a lot of resistance today, limitations on materials, limitations on manpower, limitations on money. But as a superconductor, there are no limitations in that realm. And this is where the science is coming through and allowing us to do that. Because when we're looking at the physical construction, it comes from the energy state. So the physical matter state is with resistance. The energy state is without resistance. So it's always coming. But are you tuned into that channel? So when you turn your radio on, is the station that you're tuned in the only radio station that's playing? No, they're all playing. They're all sending their energy. They're all converting their message embedded in the wave transmission coming to you. But if you don't want to listen, you're not going to tune in. And so that's the point. So there's a natural selection process in the physical matter state, but it is very limiting. If we open up to the possibilities of the energy state, then we have bigger schemes to offer. And so we get an opportunity to decide what is it that we want to engage in, and how do we have more to be able to enjoy peace and prosperity. So we keep talking about elevation because that involves expansion into the energy state that is around all of us without resistance. That's where we have to understand the concept of energy portability to go from concept to construct. Thanks for your question, Mark. Brilliant.
Okay. Let's see if anyone else would like to ask a question while they're pondering that, Alex. So you were saying that if we create some nanomaterial on a copper wire using certain methods, you said the plasma is able to travel along that nanomaterial on the wire. We see it as black without any resistance. And I know the electronics industry has a lot to benefit by understanding this nano work, but that may come in the future. Now, is the GANS material we create also a nano material and a superconductor?
Well, yes, of course it is. It's just that the GANS particle is a big puffy ball. It's an expansion of the nano. And we have, had difficulty in understanding that concept. Like you brought up the concept of superconductor is hard to understand because we've always thought that that has to be at a different temperature. But, we are in a GANS state and we are at room temperature. So what is room temperature? Room temperature is the same temperature that we're at. So it doesn't matter how cold it is outside. You put a coat on, where's that heat coming from? It's coming from within. So how efficient are you at storing that energy and working with that energy? So we're finding that there are limitations in our physicality and how we can achieve that. But now that we know that everything has to do with energy as a substructure, so these two fields are always coming together, and that our star formation, our, shall we say, amino acid, is actually a star formation, but each point on the star formation, it comes from two fields. And those two fields also have their own star formation, so they come together, and we ignore that. So we choose, is the modification from the construction site, or is the modification from the design site? So clearly, it's much easier to erase a line on a drawing and redraw the building than it is to go into a construction site and remove a girder and replace it with another girder. So this is the difference between the plasma inertia and the physical inertia. We are a matter state dominant species. We have grown accustomed to that, we accept that, and we ignore the fact that we weren't born with that methodology. We were born with a plasma state energy. So it's just a matter of recognizing that there are two different ways to convey energy, two different ways to transmit. So if you are exclusively listening to the words, you're really getting a tiny portion of the transmission. You have to look at the emotional construct, the intention, the emotion from the soul of the giver, because that's where the truth lies. And if we are going to accept the lies, well, then we deserve what we get. But the one thing that you can't do is you can't lie to yourself, because you're the one who's doing the lying, and you did it willfully, so you know that you're a liar. So why would you think that just because you don't accept being a liar, that other people should accept you being a liar? So if you can do that, then you can do the same thing with others. Lying has become a way of life, for us, and it's not truthful. So this is what we need to achieve. We need to achieve an unconditional truthfulness and have the confidence that that can be done on a regular basis. And it's amazing what happens. So as a science group, we are going into a pure plasma state. And at that point in time, peace and prosperity are automatic, because that's how the pure plasma state works. That energy is always positive. That energy is always exchanged. That energy is always truthful and it's unconditional. So as we elevate our knowledge to understand that there's more, shall we say, behind the scenes activity, then we can enjoy the bounties of this planet, because that's why we came here. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else want to raise a question or a point? You know, you talk about nanomaterials and ganses, which is a new state of matter that's been introduced in a way, but it sounds very exotic, like very spacey or something it's not so easy to achieve. We've never heard of some of this. Do we have any aspect of these materials within our own structure, within our what we call physicality? Do we have nanomaterial, and do we have ganses within our structure, superconductors within our own structure?
Well, definitely, Mark. You know, when you drink water or you eat food, that food does not come into your body. That food goes down an alimentary canal into your stomach. It's the energy from that food that crosses that barrier. And what's left in the physical matter state is expelled. So that energy is coming in. But it's undifferentiated, isn't it? So it's just pure energy. What kind of energy is it? Is it the energy of spinach? You know, did Popeye eat a can of spinach and develops all these muscles and his blood vessels were green? No, but he did gain a lot of strength. Well, how do you measure strength? By the size of the muscles? No, strength is measured as a kind of a force. That force is energy. And that energy can be in motion, has to be in motion. So the energy from that food is what's given. And then because of the GANS condition within the body, it takes that energy and looks for that embedment, that embedded energy that is common to what it needs. Well, what is needy? Are we going to feed the kidney today and tomorrow we'll do the ankle? And how about, you know, your nose on Friday? That's not the way it works. All parts of the body have a need, but different foods give different energies. And so each organ has a selection process. And when that common denominator is found in the embedded transmission, then that particular organ will benefit more than the others. But you cannot extricate that organ from your body and expect your body to function. It doesn't function in isolation. As the one man once told me, he's perfectly healthy, but he just has a little bit of diabetes. Try and wrap your head around that answer. Thanks for your question, Mark.
Thank you for the answer, Alex. And of course, I remember Mr. Keshe saying something about when you take a glass of water, maybe you've been exercising or you're outside working and you're a bit thirsty. And this is a good example to show. As soon as that water hits the tongue, it's almost, before it even gets to the stomach, it's almost like a wave of energy of that water has sort of pass through your body. I think we've all experienced that. And that is the superconductor, isn't it? That energy or something has traveled, even though in the matter state it might be still in your mouth or still in your stomach. It feels like it's touched everything within you, just a sip or two. And it's like a wave. So is that a sort of a nano effect where instantaneously it seems to spread throughout your body, the field of it, not so much the matter state of it?
Well, yeah, of course. So if you uh, connect a hose to your water outlet on your house, let's say, and you want to water the grass, you turn on the hose and the water goes, turn on the water and the water goes down the hose, and eventually it comes to the nozzle. You can see how it comes down, and once it hits the nozzle, then it gets sprayed out, and you can open and close the nozzle so you can control that spray. That's not the way the energy worked the way you just described. Your whole body becomes refreshed from drinking that glass of water.
Just a sip sometimes. Yes.
That's right. And then that's water, which is physical. And then you're getting the energy. What is that energy? Well, that's the fundamental energy that comes from hydrogen oxygen bond. The water is the universal solvent on this planet. However, what about when your partner says, I love you? Doesn't that give you a boost?
Yes.
And that's not physical, that's plasmatic. That's pure plasmatic. And it really becomes enhanced if when your partner says they love you and it's truthful. You know, it's like it talks about the Georgia peach. She says, how much does her husband love her? He loves her Cadillac. Well, that's not pure plasma, that's just materialism. And, that's what confuses. We confuse materialism with love, and that's a sad state of affairs.
Well,
Back
thank
to
you,
you.
Alex, for sharing that. Is there anyone else who wants to bring anything else at this point?
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Thanks everybody for allowing me to continue to present. Here we are in 2026, still, moving ahead at a rapid speed. There is no speed limit here. Just enjoy the journey and remember that all of us together create a very, very formidable force. But, we're not a threatening force. We are a peaceful force. Because through the peace, we can bring prosperity to this planet, but not exclusively. It's a universal desire. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else want to share anything else? I see a heart floating up there. One of the knowledge seekers. Thank you. I'm going to play the final disclaimer, but before I do, we'll just share this little memento it's a keychain that was given to some of the space travelers who went to one of the meetings, but it has a profound message on it. And I think the more you're in and around the Keshe Foundation and start playing the game of enlightenment and learning to serve the others through cooperation and collaboration, you'll become quite proud of the work you do. As it says here, may you be proud of the work you do, the person you are, and may you be proud of the difference you make. Again, we can try to make the difference in the matter state, but as we know, a lot of the game is rigged. But in the plasma state, we can touch and be much more effective in our work. And so we thank the foundation and Mr. Keshe as the universal teacher for sharing some of the deeper insights, which again, I think we've just scratched the surface of it as we go further and further into this understanding the true work of the universe. And so we welcome you all to continue to play the enlightenment game, get toned up and tuned up for the official launching. I think it's the 21st of March, and we'll be ready to play in earnest. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for hearing a small piece of a very large carpet of peace. And again, we're setting a different way to go about conducting business on this planet that, again, is going to be much less harsh of a situation. So thank you all. I'll play the final disclaimer unless someone else would like to bring something else, and then the meeting, the session will end. But of course, it never ends, just like the knowledge never ends, and the work continues, whether it's here on this planet or in the universe. But we're getting closer and closer to see the fulfillment of what I call the creator remodeling, in a way, as he said, that all of the created beings from the beginning of creation will have the ability to transit between the two dimensions of energy and matter state. So thank you all for being here. We may not understand it all, but we're certainly getting closer on our approach to understanding it all. And as Mr. Keshe continues, some of the knowledge will be transferred through the gameplay, if you can even imagine that. So thank you all again. I'll play the final disclaimer. Last request, any other people want to share anything? If not, have an amazing rest of your day, morning, evening, or wherever you may be on this one. Thank you all.
Disclaimer.
Can you take the screen, Mark?
Applied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.